7, streaming on the SiriusXM app, and however you listen at home. Broadcasting this 14-team PPR expert draft that we do every June live here on the channel, but you can also watch the video stream live powered by FantasyAlarm to see all the hosts, the draft order, the participants, plus a scrolling ticker on Twitter, stream at SiriusXM Fantasy. But we'll be providing pick-by-pick coverage of this draft. It is a 14-teamer, as I mentioned, 16 rounds. We'll introduce all the participants. We'll get into the scoring systems as well here that we're dealing with for this draft. We have Drew Phelps producing the program, Phil Backert, Ani Sridhar, and Sandro Anello. And as Mr. Radio Announcer Guy said, I am John Hansen. I am joined for the next 3 hours by Jeff Manns of Elite Sports and Howard Bender from Fantasy Alarm, who is also drafting this afternoon/evening. We'll start with Jeff Manns of Elite Sports. Jeff, it's good to be working with you again. This is one of, 5 or 6 of these puppies that you and I have broken down together. How you doing, man? How you hanging in there?
You had me at live radio. My pants came off at live radio. Like, what is live radio without a minimal delay? I'm pumped up about it. 14-team draft here, Guru. I'm ready to go, man. I'm pretty pumped up to bring it to the folks out there.
Okay, and you and Howard Bender, for those who are checking out the Zoom and again on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy, you guys, because I'm doing like the heavy lifting here, so you're going to be like entertainment during the breaks on Zoom. Is this going to be like a sneak peek into what the breaks really are like here at Fantasy Sports Radio?
Well, they told me I had to keep it clean, so I don't know what Howard and I got to huddle up on how blue to work it during the breaks. But yeah, people could see our lovely faces, throughout social media at SiriusXM Fantasy. I know at Fantasy Alarm has it and everything else. So check out the links, everybody, if you want to see what we all look like and what we're doing, scurrying for information. Just check us out on the video. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
I mean, I'm looking at the video right now. I see a multitude of coronavirus beards going on here. I've got one myself, Howard. You're a beard guy from way back. You are also in this draft. You're organizing a lot of this. You're like quite the leader, Howard, leading up to this broadcast. But are you ready to rock and roll here? Are you ready to draft? And how are you doing?
I'm doing well. The beard is necessary so that you don't see the multiple chins. You know what? I'm surprised that Jeff had to take his pants off when he heard live radio because, I hear Zoom meeting and I'm immediately not wearing pants. So, I mean, that's a bottom line for me. I'd stand up here in the Zoom room just so that everybody can see, but I don't think anybody needs to check that out
at this point, Howard. It's been 3 months. It's been
Guys,
3 months in quarantine. There's no way you're fitting in pants right now.
Right. I'm looking at a Zoom screen full of dudes here. So everyone, keep your pants on. It is all good. We're going to get started in a couple of moments here. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll kick this puppy off. Everyone will be making their picks in round number 1 live on the air. So let's set the field here. From the number 1 hole, it is Ray Flowers, of course. We love the Oracle from SiriusXM, of course. Tim Jensen of RT Sports is picking in the 2 hole. In the 3 spot, Rick Wolf and Glenn Colton of course, Colton and the Wolfman. Raphael Rabe and Josh Hayes of Roto Baller in the 4 hole. Howard Kamen and Steve Gardner of USA Today, Sports Weekly, picking in the 5 spot. Our guy, Mike Clay of ESPN, is in the 6 hole. Scott Atkins and Corey Parson of Sports Illustrated Fantasy in the 7 spot. Corey Benini of USA Today and The Huddle picking 8th in this draft. And Howard Bender at 9 from Fantasy Alarm, of course. Digger Turnbull of Fantasy Sports Services. He is at the 10 spot here. Nando DeFino of The Athletic picking 11th in this draft. Zach Lerner and Mark Zellweger of Z Will Gen picking 12th. Greg Ambrosius of Sports Hub Technologies in the 13th spot. And last but not least, our guy, Chris Liss of Roto Wire. He'll be waiting quite a long period between his picks here. Guys, real quick, as I mentioned, scoring-wise, this is a PPR league, 16 rounds, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, which can be a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end, 1 kicker. We have yet to rule out kickers here in the FSGA draft, and 1 defense/special teams. Pretty much standard scoring otherwise here. It's 1 point for every 25 yards passing, 4 points for every passing touchdown. If you go 6 points, that certainly devalues the guys who run them in. So note that it's a 4 point for a touchdown pass. Rushing, receiving, pretty much standard, 1 point for every 10 yards. And of course, it is PPR. Kicking, scoring does give extra points for distance. Defense, special teams, we're getting a point for every sack, couple of points for every interception and fumble recovery, 6 points for every touchdown, including special teams. We do have 2 points for every safety, 6 points for a shutout, and 3 points for allowing 2 to 10 points. So it's a little bit of a kind of a points allowed league in terms of defenses, but that is all we need to know to kick this puppy off. The field is set. Everyone is standing by live here on the radio, on Fantasy Sports Radio, and in our Zoom room. You know the scoring. So we'll step aside, and when we return, we'll be joined by the new chairperson of the FSGA, Stacey Stern, to kick off with announcement, and then we'll get this puppy rolling. So hang tight. We are just getting started here. The fantasy football season officially begins every year here in June with the FSGA Experts Draft, and we'll kick it off next here live on Fantasy Sports Radio.
As an FYI, she's now the president. There's no chairman.
Juggle. Is this
So
where
now
we
there's-
entertain people?
So yeah, right. Should we be entertaining people right now on the live stream? What's
Figures
going on?
actually is
Hey.
the chair. We got rid of
I guess
president.
that's kind of
Chair
what
is
we're
right.
supposed to be doing here.
Oh.
I mean, I'm assuming that everybody can hear us right now. I'm looking at the live stream here. So, Jeff, what's going on, dude?
Not
How you been?
Howard, I'm doing great, buddy. How are you? By the looks of it, there are several of us picking from the 2 hole, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely know exactly what you mean. That's
Look
why.
at Ray's beard,
How
man.
far? Let's decide the line
Look at
first.
that
Let's
beard.
just use this time to
How
decide
long is
where
that
the line's
beard?
going to be.
How long is the beard on Ray Flowers? I mean, I got to see it. How long has it been growing this?
It's where he's a
Check
yard
Instagram.
beyond homeless.
I mean, is this an official Corona beard, or it can't be, right?
I don't know. It's a desperation
What?
beard.
Damn. Put some fertilizer on that shit or what? Oh, that's
Are
right. I cursed.
Ray, are
Whoops.
you adding weight, Ray, so that you can actually leave this for Santa?
Yeah.
We should unmute some people here, and just so we can hear what they're saying on the stream.
Everybody's muted. Okay.
Hey,
People can
anorexic
unmute
Jerry
yourself if you
Garcia,
want.
unmute yourself on the Zoom. Let's hear you say something.
Yeah. So
This is a COVID beard. It's 101 days.
Damn.
And
Impressive.
Jesse, my significant other, always laughs when she sees old pictures. She's like, "Your head looks so small. Now it looks so big because of the damn beard."
Yeah.
But
that's
Santa Claus
impressive.
is in the future, John.
It's
That's
a
the
cry for
plan.
help.
I mean, I haven't shaved since the fucking thing, or since the thing broke out.
John Hanson, radio friendly. Come
Oh,
on.
my bad,
Do you
my
do
bad.
this in the morning show all the time also?
He does.
During the breaks, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
This is actually being broadcast live stream, so everybody out there can
Hey,
hear.
everybody.
Howard.
John,
We blame every problem on COVID-19. Okay, enough said.
Yeah, boy. Guys, we've been itching to get to live radio and convene. It's been a long time for all of us as well. So these breaks are going to get pretty rowdy.
Who looks angrier right now, me or Corey Parson?
Corey's always angry. Although I saw him sipping on something earlier.
It was iced tea. It was iced tea.
What are you drinking there, Corey?
It was iced tea. It was iced tea. It was iced
Got a
tea.
little purple drink.
Nah, it was iced tea. No purple drink. It was just some iced tea. I'm just
In
relaxed.
Long Island,
Oh, yeah,
iced tea.
Now we can't even hear Corey on that either. So you know what? Let's just mute all of all everybody except for us.
Okay, so we're ready to go with me bringing on like Ray and everybody here in round one.
Are we just doing? Yeah, we're doing it in order, though, right?
I mean, yeah, we're doing it in order. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to
You're
hear all
going to
the
throw
audio.
to Stacey.
Yeah, I
her
got
message.
that. I got that.
Okay.
Stand by.
Check. There I go.
The top fantasy football analysts in the business have gathered in the virtual draft room to compete against each other in the annual FSGA Fantasy Football Champions League Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Welcome back. The FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft. It is live right now on Fantasy Sports Radio. I am John Hansen, Jeff Manns from Elite Sports, and Howard Bender of FantasyAlarm, my co-host for these 3 hours of this broadcast. And we are ready, as promised, to kick this puppy off. It's a 14-team PPR experts draft that kind of unofficially kicks off the fantasy football season every year here on the channel. Before we get into the draft, though, let's get joined by the new chairperson of the FSGA, Stacey Stern, with a special announcement.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacey Stern, chair of the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. Welcome to the 2020 FSGA Fantasy Football Draft Week, powered by SiriusXM, FantasyAlarm, and RT Sports. Welcome to each June, the FSGA industry meets for a summer conference to discuss the latest and greatest in fantasy sports and sports betting. While meeting in person, we hold our annual Experts League fantasy football drafts, and SiriusXM listeners get to hear their favorite experts get a head start on the fantasy football draft season. Because of the COVID-19 crisis, the FSGA had to postpone our summer conference and get creative about how to hold our Expert League drafts. Thanks to the innovative minds of Rick Wolf and Howard Bender and the team from FantasyAlarm, Digger Turnbull of XML Team Solutions, and Tim Jensen of RT Sports, an entire week of expert fantasy football drafts with your favorite personalities will be broadcast on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports. And be sure to check out the FSGA.org for the live stream and draft boards where fans can follow all of the action. A shout out to our sponsors, Prize Picks and FanDuel, for making this week of additional drafts, including the first ever futures and prop bets fantasy draft, become a reality. While most sports have been on hiatus and sports fans are readying themselves for the football season, it's clear that fantasy sports fans in particular are preparing for the NFL season in a major way. And it's no different for the expert participants in the FSGA leagues. The competition is always fierce in our Champions League, but this year we have 3 additional leagues vying for the top spot, which guarantees their seat in the 2021 Champions League. That means the bottom 3 finishers in the Champions League will lose their spot and have to try to earn it back. I hope you're all ready for an exciting fantasy football and sports wagering content season like never before. Let's kick off the FSGA Fantasy Football Draft season. Tonight,
as Stacey mentioned there, 3 other FSGA Expert League drafts here this week. There's an American League, a National League, a Central League, but this is the big one, the Fantasy Football Champions Draft. And you can check out the draft results on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy, presented by Real Time Sports. And I'm sure you can also get the Zoom link to watch the live broadcast here on Zoom. So, Jeff and Howard, without any further ado, let's send the microphone down to the floor, if you will, because Ray Flowers has a massive beard. He's only been growing it for 100 days. It looks like it's been grown for, honestly, 100 years. He is on the clock here with his Corona beard from SiriusXM. Of course, Ray, you were officially, sir, on the clock here with pick number 1 of round number 1. You ready to go, Ray?
I am, whether it's playing Santa Claus in a couple months, John, or making this pick. I'm ready to go. Happy to be here. I think that when you talk about the first pick in the draft, that there's many directions you could go, but there's only one direction you really should go. The selection's Christian McCaffrey, 80 receptions in each of the last 3 years, over 100 the last 2. And this year, because the way the schedule is set up, if it stays the way it is, he has a bye in week 13, which should leave him in great shape to hit those playoffs in week 14.
There it is, guys. Christian McCaffrey off the board. No big shock. Jeff Manns, can you make an argument for anyone else other than McCaffrey at 1? You could argue that the Panthers may be in a tougher spot than some other teams, most other teams. It's a new head coach. It's a new quarterback. You could argue that, Saquon Barkley's best football is ahead of him still, and not sure about McCaffrey, but, is there any chance that you would consider someone other than McCaffrey?
You were talking about no, not really. I mean, you could make a case. Saquon is absolutely fine. I mean, Michael Thomas, we should at least be in the conversation as the number one wide receiver. But I think McCaffrey is the right choice, even though it's a completely new offense. It's a completely new quarterback there. Those two things cannot be understated. However, who's going to challenge McCaffrey for playing time at all? Reggie Bonifant? There's nobody here. No goal line carries. There's no third down targets to be acquired by anybody else. So, pretty easy choice, even if he comes off those 2019 numbers.
Let's go to Tim Jensen of RT Sports. He's in the 2 spot. He is on the clock. Tim, are you ready to make your pick with some hashtag analysis?
I am. When I got the second pick overall, I thought, I'm getting Saquon Barkley. But at the end of last week, I had a little pause in my thought process when Zeke tested positive for COVID. I wondered if I should maybe take Zeke because he's not going to spend 2 or 3 weeks on a COVID DL stint or IR stint. So I guess that's some thought that maybe I should take him because he would be a lower risk in that respect. Plus, Colton and the Wolfman are picking after me, and I know they're huge Cowboys fans, so it would do well to pick Zeke just to spite them. But in the end, I decided to go with the player that had the more upside, team that's going to lean on their back more. The Cowboys have a ton of receivers. The Giants have a young quarterback and not as many receivers. They're going to lean on Saquon more. So I think in the end, if I play it straight, Saquon's the pick for me.
Okay. Tim Jensen, RT Sports, goes with Saquon Barkley. Howard Bender, Fantasy Alarm, you're in this draft. You're picking at 9. Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think you'd see a day where we're talking fantasy analysis about whether or not dudes had the virus? It's pretty crazy. Howard, what do you think?
Well, I saw it coming a mile away, actually. I predicted I predicted COVID about 5 years ago. So for nobody, anybody who didn't listen to me, well, here's what you got.
Listen to your Uncle Howie.
No, but I mean, listen, I think that, we're definitely in unprecedented times, and that's definitely a factor that you could throw in there when you say that somebody's tested positive for it and he's asymptomatic, and maybe that'll keep you from losing him for a 2-week span. Yep. But, I think that's pretty much, across the board what we're going to end up seeing from a lot of guys as the information kind of trickles out as to who's got it, who doesn't, who's tested positive and who hasn't. That, for me to make that decision, as a hair split between Zeke and Barkley, I'll still go with the player who I like more, and that being Barkley. So I think Tim made the right move.
Well, Zeke Elliott here has been more often than not the consensus number 3 running back off the board. Colton and the Wolfman are on the clock. Rick Wolf and Glenn Colton. They are very famously known as Dallas Cowboy apologists. And maybe they'll mix it up. Maybe they'll draft Darren McFadden. Guys, you're on the clock here with the 3rd pick of this 2020 FSGA Experts Draft. Who you got?
Welcome to the there you go.
Yes, I am. I am a
good job, Grandpa.
Listen, Sonny boy, I was just waiting for Ray Flowers to come down from the mountain with the 2 tablets to instruct me on how to use the computer. But yes, of course, Zeke Elliott is the pick here. For the record, Rick Wolf is a Rams fan, but I run over him on these types. Such a good guy. But I did get a G-chat from Rick that said, "Oh no," when Tim started to talk about taking Zeke. Zeke has been, knock on wood, incredibly consistent. He's going to get the rock, and the reality is, no matter how much they throw the ball, that's great because then they won't be able to put 8 or 9 guys in the box. Zeke is also a good receiver. They're going to dump the ball off to him. I'm very confident and love the pick.
Okay, there it is. No big surprise there. Zeke Elliott off the board to team 3. That is the absent Rick Wolf and Glenn Colton, who was just there on the microphone. Pick number 4. You guys are on the clock here from Roto Baller, Raphael Rabe, and Josh Hayes. Are we going wide out here, guys? What's the pick at number 4?
Well, it is not going to be a wideout. If anyone listens to Rotoballer Radio here in the mornings, Josh and I have been pretty vocal about what we want to do, and it's 1 in 14 chances to win this league, right? That's not really the best odds, so you're going to have to take some chances. We are going to unanimously go with our guy, second in fantasy points per game last year at running back, Mr. Dalvin Cook. There are risks there, but there are also potentially rewards, and we need high opportunity share, so that's where we're going here.
Okay, a little bit of a risk, no doubt about it. Jeff Mans, Dalvin Cook is an absolute baller. He was fantastic. He does have this shoulder injury where the rate of re-injuring is relatively high, but when the dude's healthy, in 27 career, fully healthy regular season starts, he has scored double-digit PPR points 25 times. So, again, it's all about availability, Jeff, with Dal Cook.
I have Cook ahead of Zeke, and again, splitting hairs with that just a little bit. And I know there's a holdout issue there, and we'll see what Raf does later on with Alexander Madison and where he may go in this expert league draft. But yeah, I think tell me Gary Kubiak, Rick Dennison running back system, a upgrade along the offensive line. Was in on Dalvin Cook last year, and I see no reason to be out on him here in 2020. So
4 picks in. We have 4 picks in: Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook there. Sorry to cut you off. Up to pick number 5. It is owned by Howard Kamen and Steve Gardner of USA Today Sports Weekly. Guys, you're on the clock. I see you've got a minute to go here. Plenty of time. Who you thinking here at 5?
Well, we had talked a lot about this, Howard and I, beforehand. We were wondering wide receiver or running back because we really like Michael Thomas. Didn't know if he was going to be there. I tried when I was on with Raf a couple of weeks ago, tried to pull it out of him to see who he was going with. He would not budge. So we still sat and conversed about it. And really, when you think about it, we're starting 3 wide receivers. Thomas was the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year last season. The targets are huge. The reception totals are huge. I just think the value here, and I think Howard agrees with me, the value here for Michael Thomas is just too big to pass up at number 5. So we are going Michael Thomas, wide receiver, New Orleans Saints.
That being the voice of Steve Gardner of USA Today. They take Michael Thomas at 5 overall, guys, and we all know Howard Bender. Thomas is an absolute monster from literally the jump here in his NFL career out of Ohio State. His 366.9 fantasy points last year, 3rd most of all time by any wide receiver, Howard. Very difficult to argue with the pick.
You can't argue with the pick at all. I mean, listen, Thomas is an absolute baller. The Saints adding Emmanuel Sanders to the other side of the field is only going to help draw some coverage away. Thomas is still going to see the heavy coverage and whoever the opposing team's best cornerback is, but they might not be able to drift safety help over his way on a regular basis. So I'm looking at that as a big bonus for Thomas. And you know what? I'll say this also, even with Drew Brees, getting older and he got injured last year, missed a couple of weeks. If they put in Jameis Winston just to chuck the ball around downfield, I think that boosts Thomas's value as well.
First wide receiver off the board. It's 4 running backs, 1 wide receiver. We're up to pick number 6. It is owned by Mike Clay of ESPN. What's up, Mike? I know you won this league a couple of years ago. Maybe you're vowing vengeance here after not winning it last year. Who's on your mind here at pick 6?
Yeah, you know what? I thought I might be looking at Michael Thomas with everyone prioritizing the running back position this year, but I'm happy to get Alvin Kamara at this spot. I'm actually pretty ecstatic to get him. I get a running back, which is what I want to do, and I get the lead back in a Sean Payton offense that prior to last season went 6 straight years in which the Saints running backs were number 1 in fantasy points per game. They fell to 10th last season, but obviously Alvin Kamara was a little beat up. He was still very effective, though he was playing injured last season, put up a ton of fantasy production when he was out there, underwhelmed in the touchdown department, but bounced back in a big way with those 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games. So I'll take a guy with 81 catches in exactly 81 catches, 3 straight seasons. Happy to get him at 6.
Yeah, I can't believe, Mike, 81 grabs 3 years in a row. I went to do the projection this year. I'm like, I guess I should just give him 81. I mean, that's his number. Jeff Mans, but Alvin Kamara, a little bit of a value here. I know it's not that far down the board at 6 overall, but last year, speaking to Mike's point about that ankle injury, he was second in missed tackles forced per touch weeks 1 through 6. After week 10, my man was 39th out of 52. So I think that bodes well for Alvin Kamara in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, to get a guy that has never rushed for 900 yards in his career, but still brings this much fantasy production to the table. I mean, there aren't a lot of spots to go in the first round with upside, but I think Kamara is probably one of those players. So no problem with him here at 6.
McCaffrey, Barkley, Elliott, Cook, Thomas, Kamara. That is through 6 picks in round 1. And we go now to Scott Atkins, Corey Parson, Sports Illustrated Fantasy. You guys are on the clock. What's the pick?
Yo, Corey, what up? Was you good to be talking to you, my man? Always good.
What's popping?
You know what I'm saying? I see the beard looking real good. You got the Dodger hat on. Big shout out to my guy, John Hanson. You're one of the true classy guys in this business. It's few of them. But now with that, I'm gonna go with my guy Joe Mixon. You know, Joe Mixon, 23 years old, 3 down back. You see what they're bringing in right now with Joe Burrow. I think they can really turn that organization around. So I look at Joe Mixon as a guy who's starting to come into his own. I look at a situation that's shaking out pretty good right there. So give me that 3 down back and Joe Mixon. I wish I could have snatched up Michael Thomas or a guy like that, but it went right in front of me. But Joe Mixon is the pick right here.
Hey, Corey, I mean, good enough for Bill Belichick, good enough for you, right, my man?
Not.
Yeah, Joe Mixon, guys, averaged 18.2 PPR points, 122 scrimmage yards, 24 touches a game the final 8 weeks after the Bengals Week 9 bye. Howard Bender, the only concern I have is that offensive line. They do get Jonah Williams back. Where are you with Joe Mixon? Would you have taken him here? Would you have taken him at 9 if he slipped to 9?
I was easily going to take him at 9 if he slipped down to me. So, Corey, you and I officially have beef right now to open up this draft. Listen, I love what Mixon did last year. You saw once the offensive line started to get a little healthier and he started to get the touches. I think that's what they're going to end up working with here again. Maybe A.J. Green coming back will actually help the passing game a little bit more. But I think, listen, with Joe Burrow under center, I think they're going to need to lean on Joe Mixon a lot. And I think that I think he's going to see tremendous touches here. So I'm a huge fan. I think Corey made the right call, and I hate him for it.
6 running backs and 1 wide receiver through 7 picks of round number 1 of this 14-team PPR Experts draft. We are, in fact, up to Corey Bonini of USA Today and The Huddle with pick number 8. Not an easy pick, Corey. Who are you selecting here at 8 overall?
Going with Derrick Henry, and you are right. It's not easy whatsoever. I don't like the idea of any of the wide receivers at this spot. The touchdown value is what does it for me with Henry. I'm a little worried about the offensive line change there at right tackle and the carries. I mean, look, the guy's a workhorse. He's had a ton of carries. There's always an injury concern when you have that type of situation. But the other guy I consider there, I guess I'll keep his name to myself just in case. You never know. A little bit of a reach probably in the first round, but Henry's safe enough to me, even though there are some injury concerns, that how do you pass up the potential for a league leader in rushing touchdowns?
No doubt about it. Across his 22 starts, he has gone over 80 scrimmage yards and he scored 21 times. Moving on to pick number 9, Howard. You're not just a co-host. You're a manager in this draft. You're on the clock, bruh. From Fantasy Alarm representing pick 9. Who you got?
Well, I've got commissioner access to this right now, so I'm going to take Joe Mixon with my first pick, and I'm going to throw the Jets kicker over to Corey Parson for his number 1 pick. So Joe Mixon is my call. All right.
Sounds fair. Sounds fair.
You know what? I'm taking DeAndre Hopkins with my pick. I've got him slightly ahead of Devontae Adams. I like the fact that, between the offense that they're running in Arizona, that guys like Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald still there. I think they lean heavily on Hopkins, but they have people there who can help draw some coverage away, similarly to Emmanuel Sanders joining the Saints. So, Green Bay didn't do anything to help out Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. So while I love Adams, I think he's a fantastic pick. I think this is a big year for DeAndre Hopkins, and he helps Kyler Murray take that next step forward.
7 running backs and 2 wide receivers through pick 9. We're up to pick 10, Digger Turnbull Fantasy Sports Services. You've got some options here. I see Mr. Davante Adams, Chris Godwin, Miles Sanders, Aaron Jones, the quarterbacks. Where are you going, Digger, with pick number 10?
Well, it is definitely tempting to take Davante Adams. There's no doubt about that. But you know what? I'm going to go stick with that team and actually go probably interesting pick for some of the people out there. But I'm going to take Aaron Jones.
Okay.
He's going into his free agent season. I know they drafted Dillon in the second round this year, but Jones showed that he could, first of all, be a guy that could get the ball into the end zone, get the touches that they need. And Rodgers is going to probably still be looking to dump some balls off to him for sure this year. So he'll get the receptions that I'm hoping for as well. And as long as he stays healthy, he can pound it between the tackles as well. So, I mean, the reality of it is I like the fact that he got across the goal line 19 times last year. And at this point in picking 10th, it's you're just hoping that you have one of those quality guys. And I needed a running back. So I figured I'll get him now.
Yeah, Aaron Jones right there on the fringe, round 1, round 2, on the turn somewhere, and we're at 10 overall, so certainly within the range where he is going. Let's move onward and upward as we cover round 1 here, live on Fantasy Sports Radio of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft. Nando DeFino of The Athletic is on the clock here, pick number 11. What's up, Nando? What's on your mind here at 11? What's up?
Guru, how's it going? Congratulations on the site and everything, man. I haven't done that. I wanted to wait until we were live in person.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, fantasypoints.com, baby.
How's it going? How you doing, mans?
I'm doing well. We're all doing well.
All right.
Great, Nando. So
I'm taking Josh Jacobs. I don't know if it's I know he's very low in this particular draft room, but he's been a little higher in the other ones I've seen, and I just don't feel like he's going to be there if I wait for him. Sure. I like him a lot. I think he's going to have this year what Aaron Jones had last year.
I could see it. I like to see a little bit more, some more targets here for Josh Jacobs, but that could absolutely happen. Young running back whose best football is still in front of him. So I personally can sign off on that as we move to pick number 12, Zach Lerner, Mark Zillwinger of Z Will Gen. And Zach is going to make the pick here at 12 overall. Zach, who you got?
Yeah, number 12, picking on behalf of Mark Zwillinger and Zwilgen, the only law firm in the Champions League, I will note. We are ecstatic to get Davante Adams at pick 12. We think it is incredible that he fell to us. We were not depending on someone that can put up such consistent production. He's a horse of putting up 16-plus PPR points almost every week that he plays. We think the injuries are past, and he's ready to play. It's a potent offense. Aaron Rodgers still has what it takes, so we're ecstatic at Adams at 12.
You are ecstatic, but Greg Ambrosius at 13, Mr. Wisconsin resident and Packer fan, is not ecstatic. But Greg, good news, Robert Tonyan is still on the clock. Who do you want to take at 13 overall, sir?
John, we love Jay Sternberger better.
Of course we
at the tight end
do.
position.
Of course we do.
No, we really would like to vet Aaron Jones. I agree with everything Digger said. He's going to have a good year this year. But that being said, seeing Miles Sanders drop this far, his ADP in the NFFC is 9. Yeah. We really love that. Davante Adams would have been a good choice as well, but we really want to start out with a running back. Love the fact that Miles Sanders is still out there, and we'll love to make him our foundation piece at pick 13.
There it is. Thank you, Greg. And last but not least here in round number 1, Chris Liss and the 14 hole, of course, from RotoWire. Not too shabby here, Chris. Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the board, Kenyon Drake on the board, Nick Chubb, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones. So just make one pick here, Chris. But first and foremost, how the hell is Chris Liss doing these days?
I'm doing all right, John. Thanks. It's been pretty relaxing here in Portugal. It's not been that crazy. Obviously dealing with the same nonsense that other people are dealing with to some extent, but it's been pretty good. I'm going to go Nick Chubb. I was hoping that he was going to slip to me. He's not much of a pass catcher. I know Kareem Hunt is there, but he's just a monster. Unlike last year where I took a mediocre talent in round 1 and got pilloried for it by the Packers fans. Nick Chubb is a super talent. He's one of the best pure runners in the league. And I just think, you want floor here in a 14-team league. I wanted a running back, and I think he's a lock for 275 plus carries as long as he stays healthy. So give me Nick Chubb.
There it is. Round one is in the books. 11 running backs, 3 wide receivers. To recap here, 14-team PPR. Christian McCaffrey, Barkley, Elliott, Cook, Michael Thomas, Kamara, Mixon, Henry Hopkins, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Miles Sanders, Nicholas Chubb, rounding out round number one. When we return, we'll continue and we'll offer immediate commentary on the picks and how all the dudes, the participants, are forming their rosters. Hang tight. We're back with more live coverage of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft on Fantasy Sports Radio.
I was so hoping Adams would have been there for Liss.
I would have taken him.
I wanted
I would
another viral.
Chris,
rant.
Liz, are you in the RT Sports room? Because you should make your pick. Oh, there you go. Good job.
Sorry, I forgot to move the pick. My bad. Yeah.
Should we just continue the draft here as we're going through it, so we're not just kind of sitting around during the live stream?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
now you make your picks.
Okay.
Chris, we picked Chubb for you. Pick your next one.
Okay. Thank you. I'm taking Chris Godwin. How do I take him here? Let me see. Godwin.
There's a plus button. You click that.
Yeah, it says miss or more.
Now teach you that in Portugal, huh?
No, I don't teach that. Yeah. Godwin plus. Oh, here we go. Draft.
Blue plus.
Done. Got it. I got it. Got it.
The plus buttons in Portugal are on the other side of the screen.
Does the toilet go the
like
other
the
way?
Toilet
also?
water in Australia. Yeah, exactly.
It's in the southern hemisphere, Portugal. Yeah.
I love that look on Greg's
I
face.
knew Greg was going to take Miles Sanders. I was pissed. I wanted Miles Sanders, and I knew Greg, total nutless monkey that he is, was going to go by the NFBC ADP and take Miles Sanders. So it is what it is.
Nutless monkey. Come on. I knew you would not take Adams if it came to us down there. We're going to pass on him in round one because we knew you wouldn't take him.
I would have taken Adams at the turn.
Really?
Yeah, I would have taken him.
No one's challenging Adams. For
All right, we don't get to pick for a long time here, Chris.
What's that?
We don't get to pick for a long time, so we can go on.
I know.
See you later.
Take care, guys. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'm going. You know what? I'm about to throw the headset down. I'm just going to go on auto draft.
Might help.
It might turn out a lot better, Howard.
It might, wouldn't it? Funny guy.
It's good to see all you ugly mugs. I'll say that much. Even Ray. Holy cow.
Ray's currently filming Falling Down 2.
Yeah, it's been lonely here in Wisconsin without seeing you guys. So hopefully I'll get back together someday. But good seeing you.
Yeah, back at you, man.
For Ray. No deliverance.
If you hear banjos playing and Ray's sidling up, you better run.
Hey, Sandro.
Sandro from the clouds.
Da-da.
Sandro from the clouds.
So are the people watching this live stream getting these quality outtakes?
Yes. I believe they are.
Radio.
Welcome back. The FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft live on Fantasy Sports Radio, Sirius 210, XM 87. We are streaming, of course, on the SiriusXM app. However you listen at home, you can watch the live video stream powered by FantasyAlarm right now to see this draft live on the computer, if you will, or your phone. See all the hosts, the draft order, participants, plus a scrolling ticker on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy. Live draft results as well at SiriusXM Fantasy presented by Real Time Sports. And I am John Hansen, joined by Jeff Mans of Elite Sports and Howard Bender of Fantasy Alarm. We are, guys, well, we're about 5 picks into round number 2. Let's recap round one more time. Then we'll get your thoughts on what we've seen thus far. McCaffrey, Barkley, Elliott, Cook, Thomas, Kamara, Mixon, Henry, D-Hop, Aaron Jones, Jacobs, Josh, Devontae Adams, Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb. That was round number 1. Chris Liss had that final pick of Nick Chubb. He came back with Chris Godwin with the first pick of round 2. Then Kenyon Drake off the board to Greg Ambrosius. Lamar Jackson, first quarterback off the board here to Mark Zellweger and Zach Lerner. Austin Eckler, Nando DeFino of The Athletic, groups him with Josh Jacobs. We have Clyde Edwards-Helaire off the board as well to Digger Turnbull, who first took Aaron Jones. Howard, you took Leonard Fournette. Oh, boy, you got to sell me on this one. You know, they did try to trade him this year and got no takers. So you're putting your money on Leonard Fournette here. It seems a little ballsy to me, Howard.
Well, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option on his contract, and there were no takers. So what's to say that they just don't feed him carries incessantly and run him into the ground? I mean, that's kind of what I figure they're going to end up doing with Fournette. That's the way the offense is skewed. The touchdown total was a little low last year, but I think that a touchdown total, it fluctuates. And, when we sit there and we say, well, this guy had 16 touchdowns and there's going to be regression. Well, if the dude only has 4 or 5 touchdowns, I think if he's going to be getting that many carries in this offense, then he'll regress to the mean as well. So Leonard Fournette, I mean, who else is challenging him for carries? I can handcuff him later to Rykel Armstead, but there's nobody else in that backfield for Jacksonville.
Well, he better get the targets, or he better get the positive touchdown regression, because I don't think he'll get quite as many targets, but he certainly could get a little lucky. He was certainly unlucky on top of the goal last year. So you team D-Hop with Leonard Fournette here in round number 2. Devin Singletary off the board to Ryan and Corey Bonini of the Huddle and USA Today. I'm going to get your thoughts on that pick, Jeff Mans, in a moment. Tyreek Hill is off the board to the Sports Illustrated squad here, managed by Corey Parson, Joe Mixon, and Tyreek Hill thus far. Mike Clay takes Julio Jones. Not a bad start here for Clay with Kamara and Julio. Wow, Todd Gurley just off the board. But Jeff Mans, let's go back to the selection of Devin Singletary, who went with the 7th pick of round number 2. And I got a problem with it because, boy, I just don't know if this dude's ever going to score a touchdown, with Josh Allen being a touchdown vulture of sorts. And, of course, Zach Moss brought in to potentially be at least their short yardage guy. Your thoughts are on the pick of Devin Singletary?
Yeah, a little early for me, for sure. I mean, Singletary, we saw some explosion from him early last season and then sort of fell off a little bit. Josh Allen stealing all those red zone runs like you mentioned. I mean, they're going to have to find another way to score in the red zone besides Josh Allen. And I think Zach Moss is kind of the answer for that. So I do think you're right on there, Hansen, with, I worry. Zach Moss is going to play that Frank Gore role. He had, 160, 170 touches last year. I think that's a lot off the plate of Singletary. So I think this one was a stretch here in the second round.
Also just drafted in round number 2, I mentioned Gurley. Pretty ironic that Gurley and David Johnson go back-to-back, tail end of round number 2. Chris Carson off the board. Also Kenny Golladay. But we go back to you, Howard Bender. Wow. David Johnson, Todd Gurley. It could work out. They're both in line for a huge role, Howard, but I do not like taking running backs this early whose best football is clearly behind him. Your thoughts on these 2 picks here, and which do you prefer between Todd Gurley and David Johnson?
I prefer the David Johnson pick than the Todd Gurley pick. We know that there's an arthritic knee for Todd Gurley. I think the way that the Rams utilized him last year was very telling. I mean, he was, his limited touches in the beginning of the season. He blew up for his touchdown carries, midway through the year, and they started to give him some more carries when they changed up and started using more 12 personnel in the latter half of the season. But I just don't necessarily know if Todd Gurley can withstand that many carries again, especially being the only back really that Atlanta has at this point. David Johnson, for me, listen, last year he had the back issues, and it was very obvious that Cliff Kingsbury had no interest in utilizing David Johnson. A new coach comes in. He doesn't like the player. He doesn't want the player in there. He's not going to feature the player. And he utilized Chase Edmonds a lot more. But you look at the year before that, when he came back from missing a year, he still had over 1,400 all-purpose yards and 10 touchdowns. So David Johnson, to me, I think in the Houston offense, listen, if Carlos Hyde can rush for 1,000 yards in that Houston offense, then I think David Johnson can not only rush for the 1,000 yards that he needs, but he's also going to be active in the passing game as well. So I prefer David Johnson. I might be out on an island on this one here, but that's the guy who I take, and that's the guy who I like.
Jeff Mann, same question. You have to make a pick between Dave Johnson and Todd Gurley. Who are you going with?
Boy, I have them right next to each other in my RB rankings, but I actually go Gurley over Johnson just slightly. Howard made some good points there, but I just like the full nature of the offense more in Atlanta than I do in Houston, especially minus D-Hop there. Watson, obviously, goal line threat as well inside the red zone, inside the green zone for the Houston Texans. Gurley, listen, his fantasy production's 54 touchdowns in the last 3 years in LA. It's kind of think that's going to be his calling card here in Atlanta as well. He'll catch the ball. Not really any big threats with Brian Hill and Ito Smith there in Atlanta as well. So I have Gurley just a slight nod ahead of David Johnson.
Let's recap round number 2 because it is in the books. Somebody didn't like something. I believe that was Howard Bender. Chris Godwin kicked off round 2. Kenyon Drake, first quarterback off the board. Lamar Jackson, Austin Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Leonard Fournette, Devin Singletary, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Chris Carson, Kenny Golladay, and the first tight end, picked 28 overall, not too shabby, at least value-wise, one Travis Kelce. So we have 19 running backs off the board. Looks like 8 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 quarterback. Real quick, Howard Bender, Lamar Jackson versus Patty Mahomes. I actually have Mahomes at 1, but if you were going to pick one of those two, who do you prefer?
No, I actually have Mahomes at number 1 also over at Fantasy Alarm. I'm a big fan of his. He got hurt last year. I didn't walk into last season thinking he was going to throw 50 touchdowns again, but from everything that we saw of him and his style of play and how, Andy Reid runs the offense, I'm a big fan. I think that, ultimately, I think Baltimore may want to kind of, reduce a little bit of Lamar's running. It's not going to be huge, but for the same token, you get a guy like J.K. Dobbins who falls to you in the draft. You kind of want to utilize him, and you don't want your quarterback running incessantly. So I think maybe they do hand the ball off a little bit more than they did last season when it was just Mark Ingram. So Mahomes for me, just for the guy slinging the rock as often as he does.
We are rolling into round number 3 right now in this 14-teamer. By the way, the first 2 rounds, 6 of the 14 teams went running back. 4 of the 14 teams went running back, wide receiver, and then a couple of other variations. We'll pause here, and when we return, we will catch you up on round number 3, which is happening live right now, and we're live on Fantasy Sports Radio for the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft. By the way, I could.
What was that?
No, they take John off during the breaks. I think that's what.
Oh, okay.
So it's up to us to be the jesters. Hey, everybody.
He just said he couldn't hear the. He just said he couldn't hear the rejoin last break. That's all.
Okay. We should also remind everybody on radio that while we might be taking a break on the radio, the draft is going to continue. So if they do go to the live stream, they will see it kind of keep going. Just a suggestion. Take it or leave it.
Never stops. Come on now.
I'm liking Ray Flowers' team so far.
I hate it.
Yeah, me too.
Now known as Yul Brenner, not Ray Flowers. Yul Brenner.
Yul Brenner.
Oh yeah,
I certainly have the hair for it. I did play The King and The King and I in a fifth grade production.
geez,
so there you go. It's
You're
pretty
a regular thespian.
I was.
Reprising your role.
Did you have the beard then, Ray? Just asking.
I didn't, Greg. No, I had to.
I mean, when you can grow it that much, maybe by the 5th grade, you're even out like that.
I did have hair in the 5th grade. I was the kid that got made fun of, armpit hair and the whole thing.
You gotta take it over the top. Can you do it over the top?
What are you talking about? Wait, what did you just? What? You talking about your armpit hair?
I was the kid that used to get made fun of. I was the first kid to shave, first kid with armpit hair.
First kid to shave.
Tough growing up, Jeff. Yeah.
I think they were just looking for reasons to make fun of you, Ray. I don't think it was like anything specific.
I think it was your jump shot.
What? My jump shot? I didn't have a jump shot.
Oh, I thought you were dunking
not at 12.
Grade, I forgot.
Yeah.
The video.
It's like on our radio shows, the outtakes are the best. I'm sure people are having fun with this.
I hope so. Right here.
Oh, now look, I'm up on another draft here too. So I'll be back, guys. I'm gonna go check out another draft if y'all don't mind. I'm just kidding.
I made a pick earlier this hour in the dynasty.
See where we are in the pecking order.
Oh, I gotta see who I'm gonna take in this stupid.
Everything's stupid.
It's so stupid.
Oh, Cam Akers, I love that pick. Oh, look at Bender, nice.
Hey, thanks, buddy.
Wow, that's a good pick right there. I didn't think you had it in you.
Aw. Aw.
The top fantasy football analysts in the business have gathered in the virtual draft room to compete against each other in the annual FSGA Fantasy Football Champions League Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Welcome back. The FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft on Fantasy Sports Radio. I am your host, John Hansen. I'm joined by Jeff Mans of Elite Sports and Howard Bender of FantasyAlarm. He's also drafting right now. We are almost done round number 3, so let's recap it. We had Odell Beckham Jr. going off the board to the Oracle, Ray Flowers to kick off round 3, Le'Veon Bell to Tim Jensen of RT Sports, David Montgomery to Glenn Colton of Colton and the Wolfman. We had Cooper Kupp go off the board here, 4th pick of round number 3 to Raphael Robbie of Roto Baller. George Kittle off the board here, 5th pick of round 3 to USA Today, Steve Gardner and Howard Kamen. Mike Evans to Mike Clay off the board here, 6th pick of the round. James Conner goes off the board to the Sports Illustrated squad led by Corey Parson. We have Corey Benini of the Huddle and USA Today picking next here in round 3. Raheem Mostert was the pick. Howard Bender goes with Cam Akers, 9th pick of round 3 of this 14-teamer. Patrick Mahomes does go off the board here in round number 3 to Digger Turnbull of Fantasy Sports Services. Cortland Sutton to Nando DeFino of The Athletic. Melvin Gordon, I thought that was a pretty good value, goes off the board here to Zach Lerner and Mark Zillwinger of Z Will Jen. Allen Robinson, another good value here to Greg Ambrosius of the NFFC, of course. And Chris Liss is currently on the clock. Jeff Mans, what stands out to you here in round number 3?
The value, like you're pointing out, Melvin Gordon, Allen Robinson, Cortland Sutton, Cam Akers. I think he's the best rookie running back in fantasy. I don't think it's that close. I think I have him above Edwards-Helaire as well. Like I mentioned, Todd Gurley, 54 touchdowns in 3 years. Sean McVay, I thought he's the wonder kid. Isn't he the genius? Don't we all? And they're running more 2 tight end sets, and they're running the ball more, and they're younger and healthier at running back. I mean, I love Cam Akers in that spot. So a lot of real good value here at the back end of round 3.
Yeah, I like Cam Akers myself. I'm just a little concerned about the offensive line and all that. Could be a little bit of a committee, by the way, if the virtual offseason isn't enough, at least initially, for him to kind of pick up the offense. But Howard Bender, we're up against a break here. Jonathan Taylor, he goes off the board after Cam Akers. I'm very surprised by that. I thought that was a great pick. with the final pick of round 3 by Chris Liss. I'm all in on Jonathan Taylor. Howard, what about you?
I'm a big fan of Jonathan Taylor, but I don't want to sell Marlon Mack short. Frank Reich's already come out and said that he doesn't want to ignore Frank Reich and that he's a part of this offense. So, again, for everything you said about Cam Akers learning the offense, how about Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, I would argue that I don't think you move up in round number 2 to take a running back and then put him in a committee, but we shall see. I think the cream will rise to the top, and Marlon Mack is not going to be sticking around for long here as a free agent in 2021. Hang tight. Top of the hour, we'll cover round 4 and beyond. The FSGA Fantasy Football Draft Special here on Fantasy Sports Radio. Did I actually make that?
I think you did. I think so. And now we're back on the live stream. Jeff, do a dance.
I'm so my TikTok dance. No. I wanted to get my Jonathan Taylor Thomas joke and loved him in Home Improvement. I didn't get to do it. I'm very discouraged. I literally only signed up to do this draft because of that.
Just for that one.
Just for that one. I had that one joke in the can the whole time.
Damn. Way to go, Hanson. You should have gone to Jeff instead of me.
Days ruined.
That's it. It's over. Jeff's leaving the broadcast.
Bye, everybody. I don't think most people know I'm here.
Wow. Look at Ray. I just noticed Ray wearing the tie-dye also. So you're really taking that anorexic Jerry Garcia line to heart. I appreciate that.
And by the way, this is homemade this weekend. So you can't find this
helping your cause.
Yeah.
Where's Dexter Kitty?
He's around. He's yelling in the background, but he's not ready to make an appearance. If he comes in, I'll grab him and stick him up in front of the camera.
I think everybody would much prefer to see him than you.
Fair call, Howard.
Unless you're feeding him bacon out of your beard.
Arr.
I can't believe the value here in the end of round 3 is pretty good. There's not a bad pick.
I'll try and make
one.
No worry.
Well, I mean, it's just a matter of time, Howard. We know that. You get really productive players here.
Hey, Mark, you're on the clock, right?
I do.
Okay.
Just faced with a choice here. They're just trying to text while we're not talking live. It's a little slower. So.
Don't take my guy.
You can talk live. We don't mind.
Take Howard's guy.
Jeff, who should I take? Jeff, who should I take?
I want you to take I'm going to say Robert Woods because I want Guru to say Bobby Trees.
Ooh, that is tempting.
Every pick is just based on weirdly is a good one. It's based on just entertainment value.
Oh, well, come on, dude.
That was your guy. Yeah,
I'm a big Ridley fan.
I can't believe Amari Cooper fell this far. Wow. I'm one of the least Amari Cooper guys in the world, I think. And 4th round and 14 teamer, 4th pick. That's insane.
Where am I gonna go?
According to my one sheet here, there's a lot of scoring for individual defensive players. So you should probably
just take a defensive tackle, right?
Yeah, Aaron Donald's available.
Aaron Donald, kill it. Yeah.
Yeah. Based on the format we're
based on the format, we should definitely start taking IDP guys right now.
Just be that guy and then be like, what? It's on the list. It's on the list. What? It's on the list.
He's there.
You said it in the rules. What are you going to do?
I'm allowed to take him if I want to.
We just go to the Jersey accent, right? Like we're in a Jersey Mike sandwich shop. Oh, yeah, give me the tuna on rye.
Yeah, do me a favor. Give me that sausage and peppers. And
your girl with the hot behind. Yeah, tell her to make me a sandwich.
First pick in the draft. The selection's Christian McCaffrey.
Touchdown, Christian McCaffrey.
If I play it straight, Saquon's the pick for me.
Touchdown, Giants, Saquon Barkley.
Zeke has been, knock on wood, incredibly consistent, very confident. Love the pick.
Handoff, Elliott powering into the end zone, behind the right side. Touchdown, Cowboys.
Live analysis on your radio. Welcome back to the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft on Fantasy Sports Radio. You can hear pick-by-pick coverage and analysis of all 5 FSGA drafts with the SiriusXM app by searching Fantasy Drafts. There are 3 others that'll be on our airwaves this week, but this is the big one. You can see the draft results on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy, presented by Real Time Sports, and you can hear pick-by-pick coverage and analysis on the live stream powered by FantasyAlarm. You can see all the hosts, their faces. You can hear Jeff Mans during the breaks. He was just doing an awful New Jersey accent just a moment ago.
About, Guru?
Hey, I'm talking over here.
Hey, Guru, what are you talking about?
Trying to host the show and the thing over here. What are you saying?
Hey, not bad. You got better, kid. Anywho, that is Jeff Mans of Elite Sports and Howard Bender of Fantasy Alarm. And I am John Hansen. We do have 14 experts here convened in a live stream, a virtual draft room, if you will. We are live on Fantasy Sports Radio. And again, as I mentioned, you could watch the live stream. Just go to the Twitter account at SiriusXM Fantasy. We are into round 4. Let's recap it. DJ Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, A.J. Brown, Jordan Howard, DK Metcalf, Adam Thielen, and DeAndre Swift off the board. Jeff Mans, let me put you on the spot.
Good.
Let's just go through the first 3 rounds. Does a team stand out to you as being the best? I'm going to give a vote to my guy Greg Ambrosius here, who started his draft off with Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, and then Allen Robinson. I'd like that start.
Not bad. I was going to say anybody but Bender's team gets my vibe. I think
that's default. That's how we default.
Yeah, exactly. I think Mike Clay. I love getting Julio Jones, middle of round 2 in a 14-team league. Come back with Mike Evans, already having Alvin Kamara. I like that a lot. I like what Corey Parsons, Scott Atkins are doing, mixing Tyreek, James Conner, and Thielen. That's another pretty quality team. So I like the middle portion of this 14-team draft here, John.
Howard Bender, we were talking about values. Are you seeing that from round 3 and even round 4? You've already made your selection. You went with Jordan Howard. I don't think that's a value, Howard. No offense, but your thoughts on Howard and any other values you see in this round?
Yeah, no, it's not a value pick. I'm a big fan of Jordan Howard and what's going to happen with him in this offense that Miami runs. Listen, I think he was completely miscast in the last 2 stops. In Matt Nagy's offense and Doug Peterson's offense, he's not a pass catcher. He's not going to be asked to be a pass catcher here in Brian Flores' scheme, and I think he's going to end up toting the rock a lot more for Miami this year. So I'm a fan of that. But yeah, listen, Jeff was right when he said it before. Here we are in round 4, and you're seeing guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, A.J. Brown. Those were the 4 picks that went right before me, and I think that those are fantastic picks to make. All of these guys were on my board, and when they came off the board, the only thing that I wanted to do was said, screw it. I mean, I as well in a 14-team league, take that extra running back right now, and then kind of look and enjoy the depth at wide receiver later on, because in a 14-teamer, there's no way Jordan Howard's coming back to me in round 5.
Jeff Mans, we are not even done round 4. Now, this is a 14-teamer, not a 12 or a 10. It's a larger league, but, dude, we got 29 running backs off the board. There's already skank at running back here in round 4, Jeff.
Right. They're flying off the board. I mean, why Howard went Jordan Howard? He's like, well, I might as well get my 3rd because I don't know what's going to be there on the way back. And it's a tough position to be in, because sometimes you can say, all right, well, all these teams, so many of them have 2 or if not 3 running backs already. Well, that means maybe they're going to lean towards wide receiver, maybe grab that 3rd quarterback off the board, or a tight end that I see is still nosing around out there. And maybe you get that running back, but it's a big risk that you take, especially in a larger league like this. I think the wide receiver value is just on point. I mean, 3rd round, guys like Beckham, Kupp, Sutton, A-Rob, 4th round, Ridley, Juju Smith-Schuster, Amari Cooper, the 4th is sick. That's a sick pick right there from Nando DeFino. So I think we're seeing a lot of great value at the wide receiver position here in round 3 and 4.
One more value, Howard Bender, that Jeff Mans didn't mention is Bobby Trees just goes off the board here. Second to last pick of round number 4. My man was very unlucky in the touchdown department last year. Some positive touchdown regression likely forthcoming. He averaged 11.3 targets and 18.6 fantasy points per game over the final 7 weeks last year. I like that pick, Howard. Are you into Roberto Woods this year?
Bobby Trees, big fan. Big fan of Trees. You know that. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Trees.
I think he's a solid pick here, especially there's no Brandon Cooks in there. If they run the 12 personnel, then he's on one side. I don't know if they're going to run Cooper Kupp on the outside on the other end, but I see him being a featured featured target here. I would have taken Robert Woods ahead of Devontae Parker and Keenan Allen probably as well.
Yeah.
If it was up to me on that one, I think Devontae Parker is going to be a huge disappointment for a lot of people this year.
Jeff Mans, I have Robert Woods at wide receiver 13, and I do actually have Cooper Kupp down at wide receiver 17. What do your rankings say?
Yeah, let me look that up real quick.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, it's all right. It's always ready to go. So I have Cooper Kupp at 13 overall, and I actually have Woods at 17. Is that exact opposite?
It is. It is.
Yeah. So I mean, they're all bunched together. I think that when it comes to Robert Woods, maybe we are, myself included, is worried a little too much about the personnel change. The personnel change doesn't mean there's a play calling change; just means their setups. They're using more 2 tight ends, and what Higbee did at the end of last season is not really sustainable. So it's not like there won't be plenty of targets for both Kupp and Woods.
Howard Bender, we did see in round 5, which just kicked off. The draft in round 4, just ended with DJ Chark, final pick of round 4. Then I want to talk to the Oracle Ray Flowers about his selection to kick off round 5. We can get a moment to get him on the air. He goes with Keyshawn Vaughn, which is a little ballsy, but then again, what was he like, RB 30 off the board, which I think is right in line with my rankings. I've got him at RB 31, so I guess it's certainly fair. But we had Zach Ertz off the board, Howard Bender, only the 3rd tight end off the board here in round 5, 4 picks into round 5. So people aren't really pouncing on the tight ends, basically. Howard, what's your play at the position? Not to give away your strategy here, but are you willing to take one of the elite tight ends early in a draft like this?
Yeah, I think I'm willing to take one of the elite. Again, we look at how deep the wide receiver position is and can be, and again, we just see Tyler Lockett go off here in round 5. So, I think that you can do that, and you want to grab one of these early tight ends. I'm surprised, after watching Dallas Goedert get knocked out on Twitter, I'm surprised that people didn't jump on Zach Ertz a little bit more.
Wow, I know. I don't know if you guys ever met that dude, but he is a very, very large human being. So I think it may have had to have been a sucker punch.
It was a total sucker punch.
Complete, right?
That dude felt like a sack of potatoes, man. He was like down like yesterday's newspaper.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I couldn't believe that somebody had the audacity to do that to Dallas Goedert. Jeff Mans, your thoughts on this Keyshawn Vaughn situation? He was just drafted top of round number 1. You do know he may not even start, to open the season. It could be Ron Jones, but, I get it. They did draft Keyshawn Vaughn despite owning Ronald Jones. What do you think here? First pick of round 5.
Play to win the game. I mean, you look at Ray's team, and the upside there is tremendous. We know McCaffrey, what he is. Travis Kelce, by far, 1,200 yards a year, 80-plus grabs at the tight end spot. I think Odell Beckham has a huge, huge season here. He gets him in the 3rd round. DJ Chark, Jaguars gave away their entire defense. They'll be throwing all over. So why not? I think Ray was in a position that running back is a little bit scarce at this point. Keyshawn Vaughn, if he becomes that check down guy that Tom Brady loves so much, that James White or David Johnson pick, either Arians side or Brady side, both point to a pass catching running back. If Vaughn gets that role, Ray could be in a tremendous spot with McCaffrey and Vaughn as his 2 RBs.
Well, let's go to the Oracle, Ray Flowers himself, he of the massive beard. Ray, let's take a look at this pick here. Keyshawn Vaughn is your RB2 to kick off round 5. I mean, what's your confidence level in the pick of Keyshawn Vaughn?
Moderate, Guru. I think the way that this played out is that I made the determination, and I know Jeff teaches this a lot, is that, if you can get that top tight end, go for it. There's so much uncertainty. We all play tight end roulette at this point if we don't get one of the top 3 guys. So I went with Travis Kelce in the 2nd round. Never dreamed that Ertz would be there in the 4th round. So unfortunately, that's the way this draft played out. I would have loved to take Ertz instead in the 4th round. Because I took Kelce at the point I did, it left me with a hole in the backfield. So it is Keyshawn Vaughn. And as you've all been discussing here, is he an ideal second running back in this setup? And the answer is no. Is there potential for him to be a top 25 performer in a PPR setup? The answer is yes. But I do have some work to do at that running back position.
Once again, though, Jeff Manns, as we continue our live coverage of the FSGA Fantasy Champions Draft here live on Fantasy Sports Radio, 14-team PPR. We are 6 picks in to round number 5, but just to the point for those who are obviously gearing up to draft this summer and getting back into the swing of things. Like I'm crossing names off, Jeff, off my own damn cheat sheet, even though I'm not in this draft.
Right.
And look, we still have some pretty good wideouts here available per my rankings. Hollywood Brown, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Boyd.
Yep.
We still see Mark Andrews, surprisingly. Well,
Andrews
no, just went off.
Stephon Diggs just went. Jarvis Landry is still on the board here. I think they're, Will Fuller, that whole crew of Houston Texans wideouts. This field has yet to make a determination on who they value the most out of that spot. It could be a breakout spot potentially, whether it's Randall Cobb or Will Fuller or something like that. Hollywood Brown is there. Deebo Samuel. I mean, would he have gone around this point if not for the foot injury? Probably so. So, which other wide receiver ends up jumping up into his spot? We'll have to wait out and see.
My point is there are some really good players still available at the ridiculously deep wide receiver spot. Tight end is obviously still strong. We've only had 4 off the board, more than halfway done round 5. Yet running back is bad. So, I mean, don't you just want to load up on running backs? I mean, you don't want to take a back that you're not confident in round 2, but boy, it just seems like, I know others can zig when others zag and all that crap, but boy, again, it just seems to me you better get in the running back business or else you could be left out in the cold.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we've seen such a stress at running back position here in this draft. I think you got to be careful, though, because some of these running backs, there's a 40% first-round bust rate just overall, not just with running backs from year to year as far as ADP is concerned. So some of these guys are going to fall short. You just want to make sure you get the safest one possible. I think that's why a guy like Josh Jacobs may not be sexy at all, but it's strong and, maybe he doesn't catch a lot of passes, but he's going to be there. And, you sort of live to fight another day and get that.
Not that we're very influential, but I just threw out a couple of names and they just got drafted. Deontay Johnson and Hollywood Brown, and Marquise Brown gets drafted by Howard Bender. Like, we didn't influence your pick at all, Howard, did we? I mean, you were lining up Hollywood, right?
I was looking for Hollywood in the search bar and it just didn't come up. So I just kind of took a shot that M. Brown was the guy you were talking about.
Sure.
Because I figured, listen, if the Guru's talking about him right now,
right.
I might have to do it.
Right.
Listen, I love Brown. I really do. And I think that he can take that next step forward as the leading receiver on the Ravens team. Good home run threat. Hopefully he can also help move the chains as well. But I mean, listen, I think when it comes to pairing somebody as my wide receiver 2 with a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, I think Marquise Brown with his home run threat capability is definitely a worthwhile shot. And we know that he's the number 1 guy in that target share for the Ravens.
What's his upside this year, Howard? What can Brown do for you?
Ooh, listen, I'll be more than happy to take 1,100 yards and give me like 8 or 9 touchdowns. I'll be content with that.
Round 5 here is winding down. Let's reset that round. Keyshawn Vaughn, Zach Ertz as the 3rd tight end off the board. Terry McLaurin, pretty good value there. Tyler Lockett, not bad. T.Y. Hilton, not bad. Mark Andrews, not bad here in terms of an elite tight end off the board around midway through round 5, and that went to Mike Clay, Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson, Marquise Brown, Jarvis Landry, and here's a dude that I was eyeballing myself. First running back left available on my cheat sheet, Mr. Kareem Hunt, goes to Nando DeFino of The Athletic. Jeff Mans, where are you with Deontay Johnson? I'm a big fan. We've been very vocal about him. I do struggle with Juju a little bit here, but how much do you love Deontay? Are you making it a point to draft him like I am?
I'm buying into the Steelers offense. There's no coordinator changes, no coaching changes. They get their quarterback back this year. Roethlisberger provided that, shaved. So against the elbow is feeling good. With that, all things are back on track. I'm higher on Connor than most people. I'm higher on Juju than most people. I'm higher on Deontay, who I think slides into that role. A year ago, if we would have known what we know now about Deontay Johnson, saw how he closed out 2019 with inferior quarterback play, I think we would be penciling him in as sort of as the next Juju Smith-Schuster. So I think that's a tremendous pick because there's upside there in the 5th round.
Well, in the 5th round, in a 14-teamer, we're already kind of – the pickings are getting a little slimmer. So this is what separates the men from the boys. I mean, Jeff Mans' son, Xander Mans, could have probably drafted some of these teams the first 3-4 rounds, but now it gets a little tricky as Darius Geis goes off the board here with the 3rd to last pick of round number 5. We'll continue our coverage on the other side. We're still live on the Zoom stream powered by Fantasy Alarm right now, which you can check out at SiriusXM Fantasy. You can see the draft results on Twitter again at SiriusXM Fantasy. It is presented by Real Time Sports. Round 5 just ended with AJ Green and Kyler Murray going off the board. So we're into round number 6. We'll pause now. We'll cover that round and beyond as we continue to cover live here on the radio, the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft on Fantasy Sports Radio. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm texting my wife to go turn it on.
Exciting stuff,
Dan's
gents.
gonna love that. He told me before. He's like, "Oh, I could host a draft. I could do the draft." He could do everything I could do at this point. I'm like, well, it probably doesn't. If I could do it, I think a 9-year-old could do most of the things. But yeah,
I was ready to contract out Chris Liss's nutless monkey to do everything for us.
Did he take the nutless monkey to Portugal?
Right, I believe it is. Chris,
Or did he
is
leave
the
him
nutless
away?
monkey with you in Portugal?
There's nutless monkeys everywhere, Howard.
I couldn't hear you there, Chris. Try it again.
There's nutless
He
monkeys
said they're everywhere.
They still got you down.
Yeah.
Oh, now we might be able to. Now we can. Chris, nutless monkey in Portugal or no?
Yeah, I said they're everywhere. Ubiquitous.
They're everywhere.
The majority.
Ubiquitous.
Majority of nutless monkeys.
No, but
They
yours
really are.
specifically. We're not asking about the culture of nutless monkeys. We're asking about your specific nutless monkey.
I don't have one. I don't have one in my employ. If that's what you're asking.
Oh. Did you say on your employer
No way
on
I'm not
board?
going to say that about Jeff Erickson. There's no way I'm going to say that.
I thought I had one here, but it was just an undescended testicle, so I had to get rid of them.
Yeah.
It was just a grape that you were storing since like the 90s.
It was a raisin. You like raisins, Lane?
Better off dead. Oh my God. What do we have here? Howard Bender talking about testicles on the live stream. My, oh my, how the FSGA has gone low. Nutless monkeys and testicle drops.
You threw in a little Katharine Hepburn into that Cosell impression. That was nice.
Yeah, I haven't dusted off the Cosell in a while. It's been a while since that one's been requested, but
Right? Somebody get Fensty to do that. Florida's got the oranges, but Buffalo's got the juice.
Hey, Jeff Mans.
Yes, true.
They're going to go to you for best available players.
Ooh,
Cool.
best available.
Exciting.
Who's it going to be?
Every quarterback.
The first name you say, I'm going to take him.
I know. Oh, good. I think the best is Nutless Monkey. I'm just going to throw that in there. See if anybody catches it. James White. Here he goes.
You're listening to live coverage of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions League Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Welcome back to live coverage here on the radio of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft on, of course, Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm John Hansen, Fantasy Football Morning here on the channel. Jeff Manns of Elite Sports and Howard Bender of the Fantasy Alarm show, my co-hosts for another hour and a half or so. Jeff, we're into round number 6, 4 picks in, 14-teamer. Let's catch the listeners up on the BPA, best players available. Go.
Well, pretty much every quarterback not named Lamar, Patrick, or Kyler is still on the board. That means guys like Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers still available. At the running back position, as you could imagine, it's pretty scarce here, Guru. It's a matter of, will these experts start going into stealing handcuff business, or will they start trying to get these guys like Zach Moss, Duke Johnson, maybe Naheem Hines, those kind of backs who are still available that fulfill sort of a partial role in the offense of Boston Scott, still available out there as well. Great value, as we referred to in the last segment. We talked about some of the wide receivers still on the board. You got guys like, I believe, Tyler Boyd's still on the board right there. Will Fuller, Deebo Samuel just left the board. Marvin Jones still available. Darius Slayton coming off a big touchdown heavy season in New York. Alshon Jeffrey and all those Eagles receivers still on the board there as well. And then a tight end, Evan Ingram just left, but we still got guys like Hunter Henry. We've got Hayden Hurst, who switched teams, that is in a pretty nice spot there. Tyler Higbee, who closed out the season like a wildfire, still available as we round out round number 6.
A little surprised to see Evan Ingram go off the board there. I mean, I get it, though, and Nando may be looking to swing for the fences. No risk it, no biscuit. Howard Bender, do you find tight end to be deeper this year? I certainly do. Maybe it's a function of a lot more young potential breakout players than usual, but I just like tight end this year.
No, I definitely think it's a lot deeper this year than what we've seen in the past. I mean, to see a guy like Darren Waller still sitting on the board with the target share that he got in, for the Raiders last season, I think that's a fantastic pick there. Jeff mentioned Hunter Henry. Noah Fant is an up and coming guy. Austin Hooper saw great targets over in Atlanta. He moves over and he ends up with Cleveland. So perhaps he ends up with a strong target share. And then, you've got some darlings here. Jared Cook had a nice touchdown total for New Orleans last year. A lot of people are all over Mike Gesicki, talking about how many times he lined up in the slot and what kind of target share he saw last season, especially in the second half for Miami. So I definitely think that there are a number of guys that you can go at the position. I wouldn't wait too terribly long, though. Because you really don't want to be just walking around saying, well, Ian Thomas will suffice in Carolina. So it's deeper, but it's still a little.
I think one of those things, Guru, this year that and we're seeing the experts here, is where do you want to spend your fab budget? With COVID a part of our everyday lives at this point, and not knowing, players getting sick or not sick, we might not be able to blow through it as early as we're accustomed to, and thus need to keep it some in reserve. So with the tight end position specifically, as Howard's mentioning, if you wait too long, you become in one of those, well, I'll just get the best guy each matchup, like last year with whoever's facing the Cardinals. Okay, great. But if you're going to allocate so much fab budget to that spot, are you going to have enough should one of your star players end up going down? I think that's a determination a lot of these participants have to think about.
I didn't know where you were going there for a moment. I thought you were going to talk about like buying a mask with your fab budget, but I was going to say that probably wouldn't work. But I hear
think
you.
You could do it.
I hear you, and it's a little bit like quarterback. You want to get some value here, but you don't want to get greedy and get left out in the dark. And I see Howard Bender. Back to you real quick. You went ahead and pulled that trigger on Rain Dakota Prescott, who went after Kyler Murray. I personally have Dak over Kyler Murray. Your thoughts on Dak here? Did you feel good about bringing him into the fold here in round 6? Obviously, they're loaded at receiver.
I never feel good about drafting a Dallas Cowboy. It's multifaceted here for me. Number one, it keeps Jim Bowden quiet on the show, criticizing my draft. He'll never say a bad word about any team that uses Dak Prescott as his quarterback. But nevertheless, no, listen, I have him as the number 3 quarterback here as well. I know it's supposed to be a run first offense, but when you have weaponry like Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, you draft CeeDee Lamb, Blake Jarwin is a decent pass catching tight end. Not to mention the fact that Dak will get, he'll poach a couple of touchdowns himself. I think overall the product is it's consistent, it's strong, and I like the option of using him here. So rather than sit there and do the traditional wait on quarterbacks and sift through this disgustingness at running back and some wide receivers who I could take, but will probably still be there in round 7 and 8 for me. I thought that was the move to make.
We've got 2 more picks to go here in round number 6 of this 14-team PPR. We will recap that round when it's completed, but let's head on over and talk with our guy, Mike Clay of ESPN from the number 6 spot. Mike started out with Alvin Kamara, came back with Quintorris Jones, a.k.a. Julio. Mike Evans in round 3, not bad. This is a 14-teamer, people. Round 4, it was the rookie DeAndre Swift out of Georgia. Round 5, I thought this was a value. Mark Andrews, obviously the tight end for the Baltimore Ravens. And then Mike just took Tyler Boyd. So he's got 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and the tight end. Mike, how you feeling about your squad?
Hey, John, I like it a lot. I mean, you haven't been too critical of it. You and I talked on your show earlier today about that, and you said you were going to play it straight this time. Last time you were just hard on me, just as tradition, but you said you played it straight. You haven't been too angry with the squad, so that tells me I'm doing something right in the mind of the guru. But to be completely honest, I like it a lot. I think that getting Kamara where I did, we already talked about that one. I thought that was great. Jones and Evans, you can't ask for a better 1-2 punch at the wide receiver position. Had a tough calls. I got sniped a few times. Tyler Lockett was the guy I had my eye on in the queue. He didn't make it to me. Adam Thielen, I got beat by 1 spot and him. Really wanted him. So that was a nice get. And you and I actually, we talked specifically about the tight end position. What is the strategy there? And I was intent on kind of waiting at that position unless a value presented itself. Well, that happened. Mark Andrews fell into my lap here just a round ago. So taking him in the 5th and having an edge at the tight end spot is something that I liked.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Guys, is Mark Andrews the real deal? I did have him as my breakout tight end last year. I took him in the ACI, which is a very famous fantasy football league. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but 137 overall last year, and ADP is obviously way higher. Is Mark Andrews going to keep it up? Jeff Mans, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Ravens offense, and what Greg Roman wants to do is use that RPO a lot. They had, 43% target share to the tight end, the highest, the single highest in the last 10 years of any offense. So I don't see that changing very dramatically. They went out and drafted Devin Duvernay, got rid of Hayden Hurst, so more time on the field for Mark Andrews. I see very little risk here whatsoever, and I think that is a tremendous get in the 5th round.
We are 1 pick away from concluding round number 6. So we'll kind of go around the room a little bit more. Let's head on over to the Sports Illustrated Fantasy Squad. Our guy, Corey Parson, is manning that ship. And they started from the 7th spot with Joe Mixon, came back in round 2. Tyreek Hill, round 3. This is a critical pick here. If it comes through, it's going to be really good for the squad. James Conner. Adam Thielen in round 4, who I am very high on myself. Stephon Diggs, ironically, his former teammate in round 5. And they go ahead and get into that tight end business here with Darren Waller. CP, Corey Parson, how you feeling about this squad? I'm a little worried about Stephon Diggs, but I like the team here. How you feeling?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of worried about the Diggs thing too. Diggs in the 5th. Obviously the guy I was targeting there was T.Y. Hilton, but we got some real slick cats in this room right here. I like the Mixon and Connor start as the 2 running backs want to be strong up the middle. You know what Joe Mixon can do. James kind of down year last year, but they was throwing all kind of dog trash out there at quarterback. So a bounce back season from Connor and makes it a little bit stronger. Hill and Thielen, I wanted to get some catches because, Hill's got that big explosive ability. Listen, I was able to get him right in front of Mike Clay. And it's funny, if I didn't take him, I took DeAndre Swift because I think he could pop later on in the season. The Steph Diggs we don't know what is going to be in Baltimore, but that wide receiver situation was starting to slow down there as McLaurin, Lockett, and Hilton went right before me, and so did Mark Andrews. So, listen, there's some sharp cats in here. They're doing a good job, and I think we're figuring out a way to do it, put it together the best way we can.
Yep, Steph Diggs, Buffalo Bills, Jeff Mans. Is he going to be pissed when Josh Allen misses him routinely on downfield throws? Because my man was not happy last year.
Yeah, I don't see a way that he's not. I really don't, especially if John Brown has the kind of involvement he did a year ago. So I worry about Steph Diggs, his personality gelling in this very run-heavy offense in Buffalo, and then with an inaccurate quarterback that, as much as they want, he's got a big arm. They want to go deep a lot more than they did a year ago. I don't know if Josh Allen has the connectivity or accuracy to do it. And that's something we're going to have to watch out for in training camp in the preseason. It's got to make strides there, or Diggs is going to have another meltdown.
We are 87 picks into the draft. We are 3 picks into round number 7. FYI, 6 quarterbacks have been taken off the board. This is a 14-team league. So, more than half of the squads are opting to hold off just a little bit on the quarterback position. Rolling through round 7, we'll step aside and continue our coverage of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft here on Fantasy Sports Radio. And again, pick-by-pick coverage is available via the live stream powered by Fantasy Alarm. And you can see Jeff Mans and Howard Bender chopping it up during the breaks here on the Zoom at SiriusXM Fantasy. But otherwise, we're back covering round 7 and beyond next here on Fantasy Sports Radio.
I meant to watch the Zoom so I could see Raf's reaction when Ray stole Alex Madison for him.
Ooh.
Right.
We don't waste draft capital on useless handcuffs that sit on your roster and can't be used week to week until the guy gets injured.
So better to have a weekly decision instead. Oh, do I start this sucky running back or this sucky running back or that sucky?
Go back and reference the handcuff hedge, my friends. We don't go traditional handcuff. That one's a waste. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, buying up stock in the best running systems in the league. Not useful, you're saying? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know. Damian Williams or Madison. If Madison's not a starter, you tell me.
Well, you're going to start either one?
No, but if I
Which
need
one
to
has
flex
more
one,
value?
what if I need to flex one? What am I going to do? Madison's a bench player.
You're not going to flex either one of them if they're both backups. That's the whole thing. Having useless running backs that are on the field maybe 13 plays a game doesn't help. It makes you feel a little bit better. It makes your projections look a little bit better, but they're not useful. You'd rather start a wide receiver at that point. I'd rather start Jerry Jeudy if neither one is starting. Will Fuller.
Let's put it this way: as RB2, I mean, it's too hard to project Madison there. I mean, if Damian Williams does anything in any given week, he can have a PPR.
I like Damian Williams. I don't think Hilaire's just going to walk in here. I mean, Andy Reid wants to trust that running back, and he needs to trust him in pass pro specifically. Now, they took a huge, first round pick on him, so the odds are in Hilaire's favor, but I don't think it's a walk by any stretch.
He did a few things in the Super Bowl too. I mean, you'd hope that earned him some streak
Super Bowl. Yeah. I don't mind that at all.
I like Madison, I really do, but I told Josh and we agreed. I think we wanted him if it was okay to take him at a fair value, but we weren't going to overpay there.
I think 7th round is a good payment. I'm all about it. I'm going to lock down the premium running back spots no matter what. I don't feel a lot of people like to have those running back. I don't like it. I would rather not have what they say is perceptual depth at running back. I just want starters and not starters. I don't want to choose between 3 pass catching running backs on my bench every week. I just don't like it. So like that with Cook, I mean, just a matter of, I think the contract will be fine. I think
he doesn't want to stay there though. It sounds like we'll see.
Yeah,
they have room for him. Like
they have
there's
10
definitely
million,
cap
right?
room.
They have 10 million to give him this year and like 20 next year. So I think they could they should be able to figure something out. Or they could just hold out the whole season like Major League Baseball.
Gronk. What a Benitez couldn't waste too much time to get a former Patriot.
Cam Akers, I think he's the best rookie running back in fantasy. I don't think it's that close. I think I have him above Edwards-Helaire as well. Like I mentioned, Todd Gurley, 54 touchdowns in 3 years. Sean McVay, I thought he's the wonder kid. Isn't he the genius? Don't we all? And they're running more 2 tight end sets, and they're running the ball more, and they're younger and healthier at running back. I mean, I love Cam Akers in that spot.
3-2-1, easy pickings, Cam Akers, touchdown FSU.
Now back to the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions League Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Cam Akers, the rookie running back out of Florida State, off the board in round number 3 of this 14-team PPR known as the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft. And we continue live on Fantasy Sports Radio and on Zoom, powered by FantasyAlarm and accessible at SiriusXM Fantasy, and the draft results on Twitter as well at SiriusXM Fantasy, presented by Real Time Sports. We do have Drew Phelps and Phil Backert, Ani Sridhar, and Sandro Anello in DC, keeping us on the air. And that was the voice of Jeff Mans of Elite Sports, Howard Bender as well, along for the ride with me, John Hansen. And we did have a little bit of a, I don't want to say controversy, but something of note in that the Roto Bowler squad with Rafael Rabe and Josh Hayes manning the ship there took Dalvin Cook at 4 overall. But to open round 7, the Oracle, Ray Flowers must have saw something because he took Alexander Madison. So the Roto Bowler squad says, okay, you want to do that and break balls? I'm just going to screw over the Clyde Edwards-Helaire owner and take Damian Williams. Maybe that's not how it went, but let's get Real Talk Roth here on the line with us here. Roth, how pissed were you, or were you even upset at all that Alexander Madison, your premium handcuff, went off the board, and your thoughts on your actual selection in round 7 of Damian Williams?
Yeah, and I know this won't be going over well, but Josh Hayes and I discussed this many times, and I believe more in the handcuff hedge. I know other people don't. We would have taken Madison next. We almost took him here, but in my soul, I said 7th round for a traditional handcuff. No. Damian Williams almost should have won the Super Bowl MVP last year. He ain't just going to fade off the fantasy radar. He's going to have his say in it. So honestly, Madison's a great player. Maybe if we have the true number 1 running back, they're not available, but we'll take a guy that could be the number 1 running back on his team right now, Damian Williams. And as Anthony Aniano says, we'll try to PPR him to death here.
Yeah, and Howard Bender, look, on one hand, it's kind of nice to have like a choice handcuff. You can grab him later on after your starter's taken off the board, sleep well at night. But on the other hand, you do have to actually get the guy. And oftentimes for security reasons, you have to kind of maybe overpay for the player. What are your thoughts on that whole phenomenon? Do you like it, or do you try to avoid running backs where it's like, basically I have to use 2 picks to lock up this role in this backfield?
No, I mean, listen, it was the exact same thing. I mean, if you're talking about like for Damian Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you don't know who's going to be the person. But what Jeff said earlier is really what it comes down to with Dalvin Cook and Alex Madison. That's a must handcuff situation. And it's not just because Dalvin Cook's got an injury history or Dalvin Cook's threatening to hold out. But if something were to happen to Dalvin Cook, it's the system that you're buying into. Kubiak and Dennison do nothing but create 1,000-yard rushers. They did it in Denver. They did it in Houston. And lo and behold, they did it last year in Minnesota. So for me, handcuffing is obviously situational, and you have to pick and choose where you're going to do it. But to me, a situation like you draft Dalvin Cook, there's a threat of holding out, and there is an injury history. To me, it's a must grab with Madison only because, again, it's the system. Madison will crush it if he's the lead back for that team.
We are through round 7, but let me back up and recap round 6 and 7. Round 6 kicked off. Michael Gallup, J.K. Dobbins, James White, Evan Ingram, Deebo Samuel, Dak, Russell, Waller, Tyler Boyd, Will Fuller, Deshaun Watson, Judy, Brandon Cooks, Marvin Jones, Alexander Madison, the 54th president of the United States, Emmanuel Sanders, Hunter Henry, Damian Williams, Drew Brees, Tariq Cohen, like that pick there by Mike Clay, Darius Slayton, Robert Gronkowski, Hayden Hurst. Then he goes to Howard Bender, John Brown, Sony Michel, Tyler Higbee, CeeDee Lamb, and Ronald Jones wrapped up round 7. Howard, back to you. I've been saying I believe that Hayden Hurst is the best value on the board this year. I don't know if he was a gross value, but what was he, like tight end 10 off the board? Not too shabby. Was it an aggressive, enthusiastic pick, or where you're like, I'll take this dude?
No, I'm a huge fan of Hayden Hurst. Big fan of that offense in Atlanta, the passing game at least. I mean, the ground game, who the heck knows now? But you look at what Austin Hooper did in that offense last year, and he was utilized a lot more. So while you've got Julio and you've got Calvin Ridley, I think Hayden Hurst is going to be a guy who's going to slot in probably third on the targets list for that team. He's going to see the red zone work that Hooper saw. Listen, I just think that he's a better overall tight end than to take, let's say, not to crap on Zwillinger's pick of Tyler Higbee, but with Gerald Everett there, knowing that that Higbee's a better blocker than he is than Gerald Everett is, then who knows who sees the targets in that offense when they start running 2 tight ends. So Hayden Hurst to me is a guy, while I won't automatically give him all of Austin Hooper's work from last year, I'll give him at least 90% of it.
Mike Williams, Matt Ryan, Julian Edelman, or Julio Edelman. We can go with that. Marlon Mack off the board here in round number 8. Jeff Manns, Rob Gronkowski off the board right around midway through round 7. It does not appear that, well, maybe it does. You tell me. Like there's a lot of excitement about Tampa in this draft. Maybe there is, but Tom Brady's still on the board for what it's worth. Gronk wasn't exactly a high pick. Where are you with Tampa or Tampa in the Bucks here? Are you trying not to go crazy here with the hype? Where are you with these guys?
Right around the Julian Edelman range is where I'm looking at.
Right.
I don't know, man. I think they're obviously in the general population, they're overvalued because, you get the name recognition of Brady and Gronkowski, and everybody says, oh, my God, they're going to a Super Bowl. I don't see it quite that way. The defense was very strong last year, but they still have issues in the secondary. Tom Brady's still, 42 years old, lacks arm strength for my purposes, at least. I think that hurts Mike Evans to a degree. So, they'll be more efficient, but I don't think from a fantasy standpoint, I think that's what our expert panel here is sort of suggesting, that we don't see them being the number 1 offense in the National Football League, and, top 10 possibly, but not priority picks at this stage. Anybody outside of Chris Godwin, maybe.
Justin Jefferson, Brashad Perriman, Jamison Crowder off the board here. The first 7 picks of round number 8. Let's go around the room again and catch up with some of the drafters here, some of the owners. Chris Liss of RotoWire was in that, tough 14 spot. Does get the double pick every round here, but it's a long wait. Nick Chubb, Chris Godwin, Jonathan Taylor, DJ Moore, Kyler Murray, Michael Gallup, Ronald Jones, Mike Williams. I like the balance, Chris. I think you've taken a lot of good players overall. It's usually a pretty good strategy. I like taking good players, and I think you've done that here, Chris. Your thoughts on the squad thus far?
Yeah, last year I started out with a mediocre player. Now I've got pretty much all good players. The other thing is they're all like in their 2nd, 3rd, 4th year. They're all kind of in their prime, except Jonathan Taylor, who's a rookie, and running backs, you can get rookies. I have to say, Greg Ambrosius, normally I count on him to make terrible picks, but he made some good picks. He snaked Allen Robinson for me. That hurt a little bit. And maybe that was it. And Miles Sanders also, he snaked for me. So he's doing all right.
Yeah, he is. Let's go to Greg Ambrosius here of the NFFC. Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, Allen Robinson, Juju, AJ Green, J.K. Dobbins, CeeDee Lamb, and Matt Ryan. Your thoughts on the squad? J.K. Dobbins might be a little polarizing. I mean, not that we doubt the talent, but I personally question the role here in year number 1. But otherwise, I like your picks. Your thoughts on the squad here? How you feeling?
Well, I take that as a compliment from Chris Liss that I sniped at least 2. He knows it's 4 or 5 that I've sniped from him, but just the fact he said 2 was good. So, hey,
admitting something.
The 13th spot is tough. The 14th spot is tough. I mean, we started the 14-team format, on a national scale in the pay-to-play back in 2004. And after 2 years, we had so many people complaining that nobody could win from the 13-14 that we went third-round reversal. And this format may need third-round reversal, as Chris and I both can attest to. But I'm happy with the start. I mean, I didn't think Sanders would fall to 13. His ADP with us is 9. I did not think Drake would fall to the second round. So to get 2 running backs right away is good, because at the 13th spot, they're not coming back in round 3 or 4 or 5. You got to get 2 right away. So I like it an awful lot. I agree with you on Dobbins. I mean, he was our 3rd running back. Could Ingram get an injury, or could they just run the ball more? That's an upside pick. Same with CeeDee Lamb, upside pick. We'll see. Both of them are upside picks, and sometimes that's what you have to do from the 13th spot.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb probably going to get favorable matchups more often than not in the slot, with Michael Gallup on Chris Liss's roster locked in the X receiver spot, and Amari Cooper likely at Z. Let's take another break here. We are 4 picks away from rounding out round 18, which will be the midway point of this draft. We are going 16 rounds in this 14-team PPR. Our coverage continues of this draft. On the other side, it's the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft on Fantasy Sports Radio.
Well, all righty. I like this go around the room sort of thing. It's nice and easy.
This is it's the easiest job I've ever had. Sitting back. Almost forgetting sometimes that I have a microphone in front of me right now.
You guys,
you know what? I keep forgetting that we're on camera the entire time. I've halted a couple of nose picks. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, I'm a big nose picker. I will never apologize for my nose picking. Never. Stoplights, Zoom meetings, whenever.
Zoom meeting.
Whenever I get a chance to make other people uncomfortable, it is a good day.
Should I go in the back room here and get the Lubriderm and the tissues?
Does anybody want to hear a customer service thing that I just got?
No.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Please forward to Jeff Mance. Fact. COVID deaths, 122,000 plus. Fact. The United States has failed our elderly, and it goes on. It's just like, where am I? I'm talking about freaking Cam Akers, man. Like, relax, everybody. Talking about Cam Akers. This is a fact. Like, okay, I'm not a doctor. Hi, Cameron. I'm not a doctor. I mean, I'll gladly give you a diagnosis. I'll gladly watch you naked and then give you a diagnosis, but I'm not a doctor, and you should not trust that.
We're going to be talking about nose picking when we come back here, just FYI.
Okay, good.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I saw that in the show plan. That's right. That's perfect.
We're still
there we go.
We're still live streaming, which is all good.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, I know we're live.
Oh, I know we're live. Believe me, I know.
This is where the entertainment's at.
Howard, you keep
what I wanted. Yeah.
By the way, I just want you to know.
I keep stealing your picks, Digger.
Yeah.
Good.
Ooh.
Serves you right.
Quarterback.
Serves you right. My guess number was 8, and I got picked 9, so I'm bitter still.
Still mad.
Who devised that? Oh, never mind.
Who in the hell?
Hear pick-by-pick coverage of the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM and watch the live stream at SiriusXM Fantasy or on websites of the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association.
Round 8 of the FSTA Fantasy Football Champions Draft on Fantasy Sports Radio is in the books. I'm John Hansen from Fantasy Football Morning, Howard Bender, the Fantasy Alarm Show, and Jeff Manns of Elite Sports talking about during the break. It's the easiest job they've ever had, sitting here in the Zoom room and basically breaking down this draft. And we'll put you guys to work in a moment here, but we recap round 8. Mike Williams, feel like I'm talking the whole time. Mike Williams, Matt Ryan, Julian Edelman, not to be confused with Julian Edelman, Marlon Mack, Justin Jefferson, Brashad Perriman, Jamison Crowder, very good Arnold Schwarzenegger name, by the way, Kerryon Johnson, Darrell Henderson, Matt Breida, Jared Cook, Josh Allen, Denzel Mims, Tev Coleman. We also kicked off round 9 with Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz. So I believe 11 quarterbacks, Jeff Manns, off the books, off the table. And there's one lonely guy here at the top here. He's got some grays. He's a man. He's 43. And, well, he's still a Val. His name's Tom, by the way.
Thomas, yeah. Sir Thomas of Tampa. Staying in Derek Jeter's house and breaking into his offensive coordinator's neighbor's house. It's been a wild summer for – who knew Tom Brady had this much personality, by the way? Is it? It's like it's so weird. He's like he just broke out of a religious cult or something. He's free. He's like, hey, look at me. I'm on social media. I'm chopping it up. But yeah, he's up there. My number 5 quarterback is still available, as a matter of fact. So yeah.
Wow, you have Stidham that high? That's crazy, John.
I believe in the system, John. You know this very much. No, Baker Mayfield. I'm a Baker Mayfield. I'm a Cleveland Brown lover this year. Love the improvements they made, not just Stefanski sort of slowing down this offense a little bit, putting people in the right spots, but getting Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills, these polarizing offensive tackles. You talk about it every year, yet it goes under the radar every year. Offensive linemen move, and people don't take note, and then we see a breakout behind it. Happened to Derrick Henry a year ago with Roger Saffold. I think we see a similar situation from the entirety of the Cleveland offense here, with Baker, Nick Chubb, Odell Beckham as well. But I like the Rodgers and Wentz picks here.
No, I'm totally with you, by the way, on the Baker Mayfield hashtag analysis. It's a night and day what the situation is this year compared to last. Howard Bender, let me ask you a question relating to wide receivers. You're not on the clock for a little while here. So Deebo Samuel, probably not going to be ready for week 1, goes off the board in round 6. And Brandon Ayuk off the board, let's call it 33 picks later in round 9. The better pick is between Ayuk in round 9 and Deebo in round 6.
I like Deebo in round 6. I think him falling that far because of it. I mean, it's a Jones fracture, also known as a dancer's fracture. It's the outside of the 5th metatarsal. It's like right above the ball of the foot. I know this because that's what I did when I broke my foot earlier this year. Now,
dancing?
I was not dancing. I was, believe it or not, I was mock drafting, but that's a whole other story.
Wow.
You're the only guy who can break his foot mock drafting.
I was outside
a pick?
I was outside trying to wrangle up the dogs to put them inside, and all of a sudden I hear the RT Sports ding, and I turned around to run back in to make my pick, and that's how I did it. But nevertheless, very good reports out of the surgery for Deebo Samuel. So while he will miss a couple of weeks into the season, I think he's a great play. I think he's a great possession receiver. He'll move the chains. He will get some touchdowns. He can get yards after the catch. I think Ayuk plays a more vertical game, and I think he'll definitely be a great red zone target. But I'm a big fan of Deebo, and let him keep falling in drafts because of the broken foot. I think he'll be just fine for the majority of the season, if there's a season.
Yeah, Jeff Manns, by the way, Mike Clay, not influenced at all by your aggressive ranking of Baker Mayfield because he just took Tom Brady here in round number 9. But he also took in round 8 Darrell Henderson, big-time buzzkill last year. Not that I was into him, but I know a lot of people were. If you take Cam Akers, do you make it a point to get Darrell Henderson, or do you not care?
Probably. This is one of those situations. It's not an emphasis handcuff like it would be with Dalvin Cook, But I think this is definitely a situation where we kind of hope Darrell Henderson would fall. By 8 or 9, I'm completely fine. Having the Rams starting running back, I mentioned the 54 touchdowns over and over because that's the foundation of what this offense does. And I think there's a lot of fantasy points to be had. So I'll take 2 of my first 8 picks with it.
We will recap round 9 when we return at the top of the hour. But a recent development here, team number 8, Corey Benini of USA Today. I thought it was a bit of a reach taking Devin Singletary in round 2, but he has redeemed himself to an extent by also taking Zach Moss. So he locks up that backfield there in Buffalo with Anthony Miller off the board as well. We'll catch you up on the latest and greatest in terms of the picks here in the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft here live. 1 more hour to go on Fantasy Sports Radio.
Yeah, John, you have the tough job here. Howard and I have the easiest jobs in the world. The guiding of the ship is the most difficult.
I feel like it's going pretty well.
Oh, you're doing great. Yeah.
I think of the 3 of us, I have the second most difficult because I'm also drafting here. I think Jeff is the one who's just kind of coasting right now.
I'm totally coasting. Where's the check? Where does the check go, Matt? Just directly? Okay, good. Okay.
Here's my direct deposit information.
This is awesome. Boy. It's going.
I don't think we're missing anything or anything, right? I mean, we'll get to everybody at least once. So
no, I like that you've hit all the position issues. You know, we hit a little handcuffing, we touch on the quarterbacks, you hit on the tight ends.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're so running back receiver heavy that we kind of forget about, telling the listeners how to go about different ways to approach quarterback or tight end
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to kind of shape it as like a tutorial type of thing.
Yeah.
For those who actually have lives and have been following the NFL.
Howard, if there's a season.
Listen, Jim Bowden just tweeted out that the players voted down for MLB.
Really?
So we're all over now, man.
I don't
know. I'm sitting there trying to figure out with everybody with all the COVID cases and stuff. Like, what do you think the chances are of a full NFL season? Like 50-50?
They'll play Thanksgiving to Easter if they have to, Howard.
Yeah, full is the key. It's like maybe there's not a full season, but there'll be enough of a season. There's nothing that can be done. I've said it a million times. There's nothing, we spent 3 months and, this isn't a political talk. It's just the fact that we're going to have to, this thing isn't going away. There's no way it's going away. And we're going to have to learn to live with it. KBO, Bundesliga, La Liga, UFC, NASCAR, all these other sports have figured it out, right? They've had positive cases. They've quarantined. They know what they're doing. No reason the biggest sports league in the world can't figure it out. There's no reason. Now, will they take some time? They did that flexible schedule so they can move the first 4 weeks to the back, this first 8 weeks to the back if need be. So I think they're as prepared as well as they could be. So I'm pretty confident we're going to get at least,
Bliss, that was my guy.
majority of the season.
Good. Greg took my guy. He took Duke Johnson.
Well, that's a waste.
Yeah. You can trade.
Yeah, we would have taken Hawkinson there, but we weren't sure between Fant and Hawkinson, so we let you make the decision.
This makes me happy to see Liz take a Cowboy.
Yeah. It's painful. It's tough. It's tough to do, but it's embarrassing.
It's really embarrassing to take a Cowboy. It's like it hurts.
I've actually got 2, so.
Oof. Oof.
Tom Brady is now in Tampa Bay. Todd Gurley went to Atlanta, and DeAndre Hopkins was sent to Arizona.
Back of the end zone, caught by Hopkins.
Find out where you should draft all the players in new homes during the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Top of the hour. Welcome to the third and final hour of our coverage live here of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft on Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm John Hansen from Fantasy Football Morning. Jeff Manns from Elite Sports and Howard Bender also participating in this draft from FantasyAlarm, hanging out with me and you and the Zoom room that you can check out and access on the social media handle at SiriusXM Fantasy. Live results on Twitter as well at SiriusXM Fantasy, presented by Real Time Sports. Our producers for the broadcast here in DC, keeping us on the air, Drew Phelps, Phil Backert, Ani Sridhar, and Sandro Anello. And Jeff and Howard, we heard Mr. Radio Announcer Guy there talking about players on new teams, which could be a little more important this year. Continuity is at a premium, given the weird offseason. I actually went through and I looked at everyone's squads, and everyone is pretty good, minimizing the players that are on new teams and also rookies. But Jeff Manns, one team is kind of like not caring, and guess that team is? It's Howard Bender. He's got 3 players on new teams. Your thoughts? Is that a worry of yours this year?
I prefer veteran players going to new teams as opposed to new players. There's so much life adjustment that happens for rookies coming into the league that they got to get into the culture and got to learn what it's like to be a pro. So when it comes to a veteran player like on Howard's team, Jordan Howard, DeAndre Hopkins, I'm not overly concerned about either one of them. But as far as a Cam Akers, sure, which I do love Cam Akers, but I think all rookies are going to be behind where they normally would be. So there's definitely a little bit more risk there.
Howard, does that concern you whatsoever? You've got 4 veteran players on new teams plus a rookie in a year in which the offseason has been, it's like electronic. It's like virtual. Is that a concern of yours?
I mean, yeah, obviously you would like to have them, on the field, at training camp with everybody. The rumors of them cutting 2 preseason games to actually increase the amount of time in training camp is obviously encouraging there. But I'm with Jeff, yes, Cam Akers as a rookie, definitely going to be a little bit of a risk there as to whether or not to do it. But, Jordan Howard's been around for a while. He's on his 3rd team. So I'm not worried about too much about him. DeAndre Hopkins, again, how many quarterbacks has he played with now over time? So I can dig on that. Even Brashad Perriman, he might have just shown up in Tampa Bay last year, but for that same token, he's been fairly well traveled and he knows what's going on at the rest of the league. I actually have a lot of guys, and you know what? I'm going to take, no risk it, no biscuit there, baby. Here you go. Right. Let's just grab let's grab AJ Dillon.
Yeah.
In round 10 as the hopeful goal line back to screw over all things Aaron Jones and or Jamalfa Williams.
There it is. That's Howard Bender also co-hosting. Hosting while drafting. It's not recommended, but Howard is getting it done here. Let's review the squad thus far with a couple of other owners. Zach Lerner, Mark Zwillinger of Z Will Gen, drafting out of the 12 hole. We've got Zach here on the line. Started with Devontae Adams, did go quarterback with the 3rd pick of round 2 in this 14-teamer with Lamar. Mel Gordon, Calvin Ridley. I like the first 4 picks. Darius Geis. We'll get your thoughts on that one there, Zach. James White, Tyler Higbee, Julian Edelman, Henry Ruggs III, and Carl Hyde. How do you like the squad here? I mean, what's your confidence level, Zach, on Darius Geis in particular?
Yeah, we're liking Geis as kind of that running back with some upside. We, unlike everyone else, it seems, had not filled out our running back slot by round 5, and we were looking at Kareem Hunt, who got snaked by Nando in the pick before us. But Geis, young guy, can't seem to stay on the field, but when he is on the field, it's great. I personally just don't think Adrian Peterson has anything left in the tank to really challenge him or take carries away. So Geis can be our guy that we steal in the 5th round and proves to be a 2nd or 3rd round talent.
Well, I always talk about how if you take a quarterback early, you're probably going to pay a price somewhere, especially in an expert draft. And obviously you took Lamar, and your running backs pretty light here. Let's keep it real. Melvin Gordon, I do like a lot, but Geis is a question mark. James White, we don't know who's going to get him the football, if Jarrett Stidham is going to be able to do that as well as Tom did. And of course, Carl Hyde. Now, in retrospect, do you regret taking Lamar, or are you going to sleep like a baby tonight?
When you go QB in round 2, you never know, especially in a 14-man draft, and it's going to be 20 some odd picks before it comes back to us. We really like Lamar. I mean, his numbers last year were absurd through the first 16 weeks, just blowing any other QB out of the water. So if he puts up anything like last year's numbers, we think we're getting that value. And our task then turns to finding value in later rounds, which we hope we're doing with picks like Henry Ruggs and finding a wide receiver diamond in the rough.
Zach Lerner of Z Will Jen. So let's recap round 9, which is in the books. We're 3 picks away from wrapping up round 10, but round 9 started with Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, Brandon Ayuk, Phil Lindsay, Sterling Shepard, Tom Brady, Latavius Murray, Zach Moss, Anthony Miller, Austin Hooper, Christian Kirk, Henry Ruggs, Duke Johnson, TJ Hawkinson. Going into round 10, it was Tony Pollard, did not go to the Zeke Elliott owner. Noah Fant, Carlos Hyde, the aforementioned Carlos Hyde, Golden Tate, Jalen Reagor, A.J. Dillon to Howard Bender, Hunter Renfrow, Mike Gesicki, Mecole Hardman, Justin Jackson, and Dallas Goedert. Mr. Sucker Punch off the board here with pick number 11 in the round here of 14. Jeff Mans, the Justin Jackson selection here was somewhat intriguing. And look, Austin Eckler's not carrying the damn rock 300 plus times. So do you have any interest in the other backs like Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly? And if so, which do you prefer? I know it's a tough call here with Kelly being a rookie, but Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of thoughts. Jackson was ahead of Eckler going into last year. We forget about that because Jackson suffered an injury. A lot of us like Jackson. We like the athleticism.
Sure, that's a word
for me to say. I'm only five drinks in, by the way, folks. So that's easy for me to say. We were high on Justin Jackson last year, but now you got Josh Kelly. They drafted in the 4th round. Definitely profiles as a between the tackles banger. And a guy who would likely get a lot of short yards, a lot of goal line carries. So I think Kelly's actually more of a threat at this point than Justin Jackson. So I have Kelly ahead of him.
Let's go to the USA Today squad. That would be Howard Kamen and Steve Gardner standing by out of the 5 hole. Here's the squad. Michael Thomas, they go wide out at 5. Todd Gurley, George Kittle, Mark Ingram, T.Y. Hilton, Will Fuller, Drew Brees, Matt Breida, Sterling Shepard, and the aforementioned Justin Jackson. Steve, will go to you. How are you guys feeling here through 10 rounds of this 14-teamer?
It's a tough one, I have to say. A lot of difficult picks to make and a lot of sniping going on. We were just getting ready, licking our chops to get Mecole Hardman last round. And then all of a sudden, Mike Clay comes out of, well, he didn't come out of nowhere because he was right there the whole time, but he snagged him anyway. So that we pivoted to Justin Jackson off of that, and it's okay. I mean, we're not sick about it, but we'd like to have a couple of picks differently if they were available.
So Steve, so you went Todd Gurley, which God love you. I wish you nothing but the best, but I'm very concerned about taking the dude who, maybe falling off a cliff. Could have taken, David Montgomery. I know he's not very sexy and let a lot of people down last year, but at least he's a young guy. Le'Veon Bell. I mean, how confident are you in Gurley this year?
Well, whenever you go to a new system and a new offense, you have to be a little bit concerned. But, Todd Gurley has shown that he can do it. He gets the ball on the goal line. We're looking for those touchdowns there. We're looking for double-digit touchdowns. And we're looking for a little bit of action out of the passing game, too. I mean, we haven't seen say his backup go yet in the game in this draft. So we still think that Gurley's going to have a productive year left in him. And at that point, running back was premium for us. So we liked him better than we liked David Johnson.
Jeff Mans, we are into the 11th round, and we have 12 QBs off the board, but there are a couple of teams that have not taken a QB. The Sports Illustrated guys, that would be Corey Parson and Scott Atkins, 0.0 quarterbacks on the squad. Nando DeFino of The Athletic, 0 quarterbacks. I guess it's just those two. Yet, I mean, if you're looking for the best value right now in this draft, I mean, it's got to be the quarterback position. Daniel Jones is a veil. Baker Mayfield is a veil, Jeff.
Yes, Roethlisberger, Locke, and Josh Allen's still available, right? I mean, no, he's off the board.
He's gone.
Yeah, Stafford's still available at this point. So, I mean, we got some, and dealer's choice as far as what quarterback. I don't think either one of these teams that have waited to the 11th round are going to be disappointed on who they wind up ultimately choosing. I think waiting on quarterback proves once again to be very viable, and why we're seeing such a rise in 2 quarterback / super flex formats.
Yeah,
but
no
do you
doubt
see,
about it.
let me just ask a quick question.
Sure.
Do you see a need for, I mean, in a league that you see so many guys sitting on the waiver wire, it's almost unnecessary to take that backup tight end or that backup QB. With the amount of depth at the QB position, do people start to take more, go for a backup QB just to have more, basically just so that they don't have to worry about it as the year goes on?
Yeah, for me, Howard, it would be dependent upon who I took as the starter, for one. If I took Carson Wentz, who I do worry about his availability. I always love Wentz, but I do worry about his availability. If I took Carson Wentz, I'm definitely taking a backup quarterback. But Matt Ryan, man, he's just watch me curse him now, but he's been an Iron Man. Russell Wilson, I don't think he'll ever miss a game. Dak Prescott, kind of the same deal. So, and it depends. Sometimes I've been in drafts where I look at the board and I'm like, oh, look at all these great quarterbacks. I don't need to take a QB2. But then there's a run that starts and I'm like, oh, crap. Now I'm rolling with, Tyrod Taylor as my QB2, Jeff Mans, which is not advisable. Are you looking in a 14-team league like this to lock up a good backup quarterback? And let's expand it out to, tight end as well and even defense.
Yeah, with quarterback specifically, I may do that only if they're an early round buy. One of the tricks I'm using this year is if we get some of these quarterbacks week 5, 6, or 7 buy, if there was a delay to the season, that's going to be week 1. They're going to move that weeks 1 through 4 back, and all of a sudden the bye week's on week 1, so then you won't have a quarterback possible that week. So if I have an earlier round buy, I'm more looking at possibly, especially in a deeper league like this, maybe securing that second guy with a later bye week if somebody that I like is available. Otherwise, it's only one quarterback league. If it's week 10 or later, probably lean towards no, unless something really pops off the charts.
Let me reel off round 10 because that is in the books. Tony Pollard, Noah Fant, Carlos Hyde, Golden Tate, Jalen Reagor, A.J. Dillon, Hunter Renfrow, Mike Gesicki, Mecole Hardman, Justin Jackson, Dallas Goedert, Boston Scott, Antonio Gibson, very intriguing player there. Alshon Jeffrey. Round 11 has been kicked off, and it kicked off with N'Keal Harry, Jalen Samuels, Michael Pittman Jr., very good value there, Naheem Hines, Robbie Anderson, and Preston Williams. We have yet to talk, I believe, with Tim Jensen of RT Sports. By the way, our draft results on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy are presented by RT Sports. Let's take a look at this squad drafted from the 2-hole in this 14-team PPR draft. Saquon Barkley, Kenny Golladay, Le'Veon Bell, Robert Woods, Zach Ertz, Brandon Cooks, Manny Sanders, Denzel Mims, Carson Wentz, Antonio Gibson, and Jalen Samuels. Tim, how are you feeling about the squad thus far?
I like the first handful of rounds. I feel I really did well in the 4th and 5th rounds, especially in a 14-teamer. You're waiting so long to get to the back end of that 4th round. But I got Woods at the end of the 4th and Ertz at the top of the 5th. And those are two guys that should do 85, 90 catches this year. And to get that kind of value in the 4th and 5th round, I felt in a PPR league is really going to help me out. Kind of scratching for running back now, although I think between Bell and Barkley, I've got a solid floor. So I'm going to look for some upside and some handcuffs.
By the way, Jeff Mann, speaking of handcuffs, for those out there prepared, maybe they got number 2 in their draft draw for this redraft here in 2020. If you're taking Saquon,
no,
and let's say you're a handcuff guy, who in the wide world of sports are you handcuffing Saquon Barkley with?
Nobody. Gallman. Yeah, I mean, that's deep league, maybe, or like league, maybe late in this draft. Maybe you look at something like that. It's not Deion Lewis, but no, Saquon's not one of the guys. He's a unicorn. He's a guy that doesn't produce because of the scheme he's in. He produces because he is a absolute 1%er as far as athleticism. So yeah, I'm not gonna. There's nobody here that could put up viable numbers should Saquon go down. Unlike Dalvin Cook, Zeke Elliott, some of these other guys where we've seen the backup come in and produce at a pretty high level.
Well, here's a good handcuff who just went off the board, much to, I'm sure, Greg Ambrosius's chagrin from the NFFC, because Greg, Howard Bender, took Kenyon Drake. Although, Howard, you're on the clock here. You're a professional, you don't need much time. But Kenyon Drake goes off the board to Greg Ambrosius in round 2. And then, Jeff, Chase Edmonds just goes off the board here in round 11. I feel like Greg is probably kicking himself just a little bit because Chase Edmonds is a choice handcuff.
For those of you who are checking out our Zoom chat, you can find it at SiriusXM Fantasy. Real Talk Raph and I had a spirited conversation about handcuffs, and there's sound on it right now posted on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy. And one of the reasons I'm all about taking that handcuff to a Dalvin Cook or something like that, John, is to your point, or even Chase Edmonds in an earlier round, is we're seeing a lot of running backs that are sort of forgotten about. Nyheim Hines, Antonio Gibson, I think, is a very sharp grab. Jalen Samuels there too. Nyheim Hines, Chris Thompson's still on the board in Jacksonville as well. There's a lot of running backs who have smaller, segmented out roles that you're getting around 11 plus at this stage of the game. To me, if I'm spending a first rounder on Zeke, Dalvin, probably Henry, Aaron Jones, those kind of guys, I'm definitely going to invest that earlier pick on a handcuff.
Speaking of Chris Thompson, Jeff, I just got a text. I'm told he was hurt today by someone's words. He'll be out 6 weeks. So
that I wouldn't doubt. That I absolutely doubt.
Howard Bender, you just took the Lazard King in Green Bay, Alan Lazard. Was that just a dart throw, or are you thinking Alan Lazard is going to be the wide receiver to own in Green Bay, not named Devontae?
He's got to be, right? What are they gonna? They're gonna talk about Marquez Valdez-Scantling again? Are we gonna be led to believe that Equanimeous St. Brown is gonna be the guy suddenly? I think Lazard gets overlooked by a lot of people. And let's face it, if Devontae Adams is going to be getting all the double coverage and he's going to be seeing some tough times there, Alan Lazard should open up. We saw Aaron Rodgers connect with him over these last 2 seasons, and I think that that's something that you have to pay attention to. As my 5th wide receiver, somebody who I'll be using it during bye week coverage, I think that there's great upside. We talk about it all the time in fantasy sports. It's not just about talent, right? It's about opportunity. And if Alan Lazard is going to see the majority of snaps out of this wide receiver crew opposite Devontae Adams, then that's the guy who I want to invest in this offense.
Round 11 continues. We are more than halfway done. Digger Turnbull just made a selection of a tight end. But when we return, let's talk with Digger and see how he's feeling, because, guys, he has not taken a running back in the last 1 hour and 53 minutes. So we'll talk about that as we continue coverage live here of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft here on Fantasy Sports Radio.
Great pick, Howard. I had Lazard on my next pick. Aaron Rodgers.
Who did?
I did. Jensen.
Oh, sweet. Glad I stole him from you.
It's a good one.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers has been talking him up on social media quite a bit. So I think he sees little favoritism there.
Well, that's really what I go for. I saw that from Aaron Rodgers, which is why it turned me on to Lazard. For the same reason I took Hayden Hurst, because apparently, according to Matt Ryan, he is the most athletic tight end that he's ever played with. And so that tells me that Hayden Hurst is going to be better than Tony Gonzalez, right? Come on.
Always believe what you hear in June. That's what I say.
Yeah, that's right.
All hype team.
I think your point, though, Howard, was fantastic with the, we always, all of us stress out about, how good a player is, how good he was in college, how athletic he is, all this stuff. But really, it just, none of it means anything until you get on the field. You have to get an opportunity. If you're not getting targets or touches, doesn't matter. You can be the fastest, strongest man alive. And if you don't touch the ball, it means nothing in our game. So that was a great point there.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
I was stunned. It came out of your mouth. I was like, what? I actually had to go to the producers and say, did Howard say that?
Well, it was either that or bitching about how fast the ticker is moving across the live stream right now. I'm like getting vertigo watching it. I'm like, slow this down. It'll be slower tomorrow, people. It'll be slower tomorrow.
Are they saying slow it down there? Oh, man.
I'm saying slow it down. I have it like coming out of the corner of my eye, and
It
I
is
swear
kind
I'm
of
gonna
speeding along, isn't it?
I'm gonna kind of end up like with vertigo. I'm falling down.
Yeah.
I'm like dropping down. If I pass out in the middle of this draft, people, somebody throw me onto auto pick.
We wouldn't think twice about it, Howard. Matt preps us all. Okay, if Howard passes out and goes to sleep mid-show, here's what you do. So we're ready. We're ready.
You will go to sleep, or I will put you to sleep.
Or I will put you to sleep, Grandma. You're in my world now, Grandma.
My fingers hurt.
Oh, do your fingers hurt? Aw. You just pulled ditch digging duty. How's your fingers?
Somebody put me and Mans on air for like 3 hours straight. Please.
Nobody would listen, but it would be. We'd have all the movie quotes.
Like we would at least get each other's jokes on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah. Nobody else would. Nobody. But that'd be something.
Like somebody in the YouTube chat made a comment about Lane Meyer. So
Lane Meyer.
That's comfortable. Yeah. I like that.
We have a kicker off the board.
What? Oh, we do.
Chris List, the nutless monkey.
Justin
takes
Pucker.
a chalk kicker in the 12th round.
What's he letting the monkey pick for?
Such a nut.
first pick. And Danny Dimes.
We don't waste draft capital on useless handcuffs that sit on your roster and can't be used week to week until the
so
guy
better
gets
to
injured.
have a weekly decision instead. Oh, do I start this sucky running back or this sucky running back or that sucky?
The handcuff hedge, my friends. We don't go traditional handcuff. That one's a waste. Thanks.
Handoff to Pollard, coming left, breaks a tackle. 10, 5, Tony Pollard.
Dillon charging into the end zone for a touchdown.
Now back to the guru, John Hanson, Howard Bender, and Jeff Mans.
Thank you, Mr. Radio Announcer Fella. Welcome back here. Another 35 minutes or so of live coverage of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft here on Fantasy Sports Radio, the official, unofficial start of the fantasy football year, the draft season. You heard Real Talk Roth there, keeping it real on handcuffing. We'll find out if, keeping it real goes wrong for Real Talk Roth later on in the season when Dalvin Cook and the Vikings hopefully take the field. But when we last left you, we were talking about Digger Turnbull squad here from Fantasy Sports Services out of the 10 hole. And let's welcome Digger here to the broadcast and put on the mic. He's on the clock, actually, but we can give him a second here before he makes his pick. The reason I want to talk with Digger, you can figure it out by listening to his draft thus far. Aaron Jones at the 10 spot. You come back. Actually, no. Yeah, Aaron Jones. Then you come back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay, running back. Okay, kicking it old school. Then it's Patrick Mahomes, A.J. Brown, Jarvis Landry, Deebo Samuel, John Brown, Justin Jefferson, Austin Hooper, Jalen Reagor, and they just took Jack Doyle. So actually, we'll let him make his pick because he's on the clock, Jeff Mans. But have you seen a team ignore the running back quite like this and like ever?
Not in a while. It's been first 2 picks. He's got a lot of faith in Edwards-Helaire. That's what it comes down to. And as we talked about earlier, I think rookies are behind the 8 ball. I don't think Damian Williams concedes this job just going away, especially not at the very beginning of the season. So to only have 2 at this stage is definitely a big risk.
Well, Digger, let's get it right from the horse's mouth here. You're drafting this team. I thought you were off to a great start. You did draft a bunch of other good players, but I'd be scared S-less if I were you at the running back position. Your thoughts here?
Well, my thoughts were that it might have gone a little bit differently in the draft when I was going to be picking. But, when I picked Edwards-Helaire, I knew he wouldn't come back to me. I think he's going to get a lot of touches this year. The other one I would have figured of taking at that time, but the injury part was Chris Carson. And I didn't like any of the other guys, coming around. And when it came back to me, Mahomes was the guy at that time. I wasn't really thinking running. I was going to go 3 running backs at that point. Again, when it came back the next few times, the guys, when I was going to take them, they just went before I got to my pick. And that's the way it falls. So you just then have to change your strategy because you don't like the picks that are available when it's your turn. So, it's not exactly how I planned the draft. I wasn't going to probably pick a quarterback at that time. I was probably looking 5th or 6th round, but Mahomes was on the board, and that changed the strategy all the way around.
Yeah, and I think, look, as I said earlier, if you take a quarterback early in a tough draft, you're going to pay a price somewhere else. Clearly, you're paying that price at the running back position. But look, many paths to a championship. It's not inconceivable that you pluck a gem off the waiver wire. I'm sure Philip Lindsay 2 years ago, when undrafted in this league, was probably on the waiver wire. So there you go. I mean, you're really hanging your hopes on that wire, Digger, but maybe they'll be better this year. But last year, the waiver wire was really bad. So I wish you luck, Digger.
No, I'll tell you. So coming around in round 9, I was going to take Lindsay. He obviously went 5 picks before. Coming back in the next round, I was looking for sure. At last pick, I was going to take Chase Edmonds coming back to me. And then afterwards, I was going to take Anthony McFarland coming back. And, Greg obviously got him. Corey took Edmonds coming to me that way. So that's, again, it's the way the strategy works. And if you hold off, that's what's going to happen to you. So you have to make those picks and those decisions at the right time.
Absolutely. And Jeff Mans, I personally, if I were in Digger's shoes, I probably would have taken Kareem Hunt in round 5, toward the end of round 5. It's going to be hard for him to replicate what he did last year, out producing Nick Chubb in 6 of the final 8 games.
Yeah.
But what do you think about Kareem Hunt this year? I mean, when in doubt, he's 25 years old and he's still a stud.
I love the offense. Kareem Hunt clearly still has, ability to break tackles, catch the football in the backfield. What the exact role is going to be. It's not like Nick Chubb can't catch the football. He did in the first half of last year. It's just that's going to be the role for Kareem Hunt. I think this offense is going to be so dynamic. I think Nick Chubb breaks off a lot of big runs. I think this is one of those rare situations where both running backs will be fantasy viable. I think Chubb's going to be a strong running back 1. I really do believe that. It's going to be hard to get him off the field with the yards per clip he's going to attain. And then I think Kareem Hunt will have a nice full point PPR role here as well. So I don't love investing in sort of the early 5th, 6th round running back that has only a part-time role. But in this situation, I think the offense will support it.
Plus, it's a 14-teamer. So, yeah. 5th round for Kareem Hunt is really like the 6th round in a 12-teamer. Right. Let me recap round 11 real quick while I'm thinking of it here, because I haven't gone through every name here in this 14-teamer. So round 11, we're in round 12. We've got a couple of picks left to go in round 12. But N'Keal Harry, Jalen Samuels, Michael Pittman, Naheem Hines, Robbie Anderson, Preston Williams, Chase Edmonds. We gave you those names earlier. Jay Sternberger, who I'm very high on, Alan Lazard, Jack Doyle, D.D. Westbrook, Jonnu Smith, Anthony McFarland, Daniel Jones, final pick of round 11 in a 14-teamer. Then we went to round 12. It was Justin Tucker, Sammy Watkins, Curtis Samuel, Deion Lewis, San Francisco 49er D, Baker Mayfield, Chris Thompson, Ben Roethlisberger, Deshaun Jackson, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, Randall Cobb, Jared Goff. So we have some values here for sure in this round or the last two, Howard. So who do you like as the best value the last two rounds at quarterback between Daniel Jones, final pick around 11, Baker Mayfield, 5 picks in around 12, Big Ben around midway through round 12, and then Stafford, Tannehill, Jared Goff, second half around 12. So I just named 6 dudes there, but does one or two of them stand out to you?
Baker Mayfield, Jeff was talking him up earlier in the broadcast. I'm a big fan of what's going on as far as Stefanski coming in and why is the OC now suddenly escaping my mind?
Van Pelt, Alex Van Pelt.
Yeah,
Van Pelt,
yeah.
Who has great experience working with quarterbacks. So if they do actually fix Baker Mayfield's footwork, if he does show improvement, I think there's a lot of upside there. Now, I took him as a backup quarterback because I'm sitting with Dak Prescott right now. And based on the way that this started a nice, healthy little quarterback run in round 12, it means that Nando DeFino is going to end up with Gardner Minshew as his top QB, which means that he is ripe for the trading here. You want Dak, you want Baker. I'm willing to part with either guy. So I think that for the time being right now, I can just sit with that draft capital and enjoy that. And if a trade is necessary, then I can do that. If it's not a big deal here because I still have solid players.
Only one defense off the board thus far here in round 13, FYI. 2 picks into round 13. I have a little term for fantasy picks for, down the board like this. I call them 14-team specials, in that, like, in a 10-team league, you're like, I don't want this dude. Even in a 12-team league, it's like, but in a 14-team league, you'll take 10 PPR points as a bye week fill-in, and there are a number of players that I have flagged as kind of 14-team specials, and this is right exactly when you draft them, the final 4 rounds of this draft. So let's step aside and continue round 13 with a couple players off the board. We'll see if anyone takes some of my 14-team specials as we continue here till the top of the hour. The FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft here live on Fantasy Sports Radio.
Nice. Nando, you ready to start talking deal?
I don't want to say this. I don't want to say this out loud on the stream, but you can't trade in this league, can you? Hasn't that always been the rule?
Can we trade?
I don't think you can.
Really? Is there no trading? Oh, well. Enjoy
No,
Gardner
no
Minshew.
trading. Good to have draft capital. No trading it.
That's what I assumed, man.
I know you can draft in the baseball. I don't recall on the football. We'll have to look
The
at the
rules that were sent out, I think, did say no trading.
No trading.
So why is the FSGA allowed trading in baseball but not football? Digger.
Sorry, my mic's not working. I can't answer that.
I don't think there's trading.
Trust me, with my roster right now looking for a running back, I'd love to make a trade.
I think we just switched it in baseball.
I don't think we have trading in baseball either.
Yeah?
This was set up by Charlie, both of them. I don't think either one has trading.
Sorry, by the way, what sport are you talking about? Baseball? There's actually a league going
Baseball
on.
does have trading. It just has some
KBO.
crazy rules about it.
We lobbied Charlie for baseball trading just because of lists, I think, wasn't it?
No. FSGA has trading in baseball, no doubt.
There used to be. I knew that.
Yeah, so why not in football?
I know. I mean,
complaints.
Brochus might cheat us for $50, but I don't think the rest of you guys do it.
No, I didn't put in that rule. I don't care.
$50. It's not like you understand why the NFC.
Oh yeah, you can't allow trade.
No, we got a hard time getting people to pay the $50 here. It's harder than getting the money from the NFC guys.
I'll get it to you, Greg.
Hey, Digger, we
What's
leaving
the
this with
conversion
a
rate?
kicker and a defense?
We might need a side bet on the 13, 14 teams here too,
you.
Well, that's fine. I'm happy to sit with my 2 QBs. Y'all can suck it anyway. How about that? How about that? You everybody get that on the live stream?
Yeah.
There's no trading. Everyone thinks they're funny. They can all suck it.
Everybody get that?
That's what Bender's saying.
Hey, we can have trading. I don't care if we want to add that, but we probably should have done that before the draft.
Probably. But you know, come on, last minute change. What's the big deal about a last minute change?
Yeah,
we do it all the time.
Sometimes they add 4 more playoff teams midseason. It's fine. Just whatever. Let's go.
Can we start from scratch if we're going to do that? That would be a good thing.
Yeah, I think
Digger's ready.
Digger's ready.
Start it over. Test runs over.
The whole thing again on Friday.
Is this a keeper league?
It's Dynasty.
Dynasty, yeah.
Dynasty.
Steve Gardner, were you there when John Zaleski objected?
From rookie wideouts C.D. Lamb and Jerry Jeudy.
Touchdown, Jerry Jeudy.
To first-year runners Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, and DeAndre Swift.
Touchdown, DeAndre Swift.
This year's rookie class is poised to make a big impact for fantasy football. This is the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
3 more rounds to go until the top of the hour when we sign off here. It is round 13 of the 16-rounder, 14-team PPR. The official, unofficial, official start of the fantasy football draft season, as it is per usual here on Fantasy Sports Radio. The FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft. Normally we're in New York City or Chicago or San Francisco. Obviously we're doing this all virtually this year. You can check out the live stream still at SiriusXM Fantasy. And of course the draft results on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy, presented by Real Time Sports. We've been trying to get everyone involved here to talk about their teams. It's a 14-team league, so it's a little difficult here, but I believe Nando DeFino is the only draft participant we have not yet checked in with, so we'll do it now. And Nando, drafting out of the 11 hole, of course, representing the Athletic, went ahead with Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, Cortland Sutton, Amari Cooper, Kareem Hunt, Evan Ingram, Sony Michel, Marlon Mack in round 8, Christian Kirk, Golden Tate, D.D. Westbrook, Dion Lewis in round number 12. Of course, Nando, of course, it's always works out this way. It's going to be on the clock in a moment here, Nando. But how you feeling about your squad, man?
Good. I actually like how it turned out. I'm somewhat excited about it, and that doesn't happen too often with these, especially these deep and these expert leagues. So I like it. I'm chasing targets. I'm happy.
Okay.
How do you feel, Guru? Do you like it?
I let me take a look here. I had a producer.
That means no. The minute he has to, if he didn't
no.
Like, what else you have to look up? You just read off my team. Yeah. Give me 1 second here.
Let me
well,
find something reasonable.
you don't have a quarterback, so
I'm gonna take. I got one in mind.
Okay. Well,
here's a live pick. Here's a live pick for you.
Okay.
Antonio Brown.
Exciting.
Yes. I've been waiting for this. The whole draft. 13 rounds. Nobody took Antonio Brown yet.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, but he's not a signal caller, right? I mean, he's not throwing passes, but okay.
You know, I don't want to be.
That's what the LAPD says.
Yeah.
Or the Florida PD, Hollywood PD.
Mans, when you were earlier going over the list, I mean, that was the whole point. Like, it was me and Corey who didn't have a quarterback yet. And it was kind of like, why pick one now? You know, some people are going to take their second one. I think.
Some did take their second one.
But I mean, you go down like 6 on this list that's set up on the site. There's still Phillip Rivers. So, I mean, there's one guy I got to take and maybe 2 go off the board. I'm even happy with Tyrod Taylor at this point. So I'm good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I got no problem with your team. I mean, I wasn't a fan of the Dion Lewis selection there, but everything else looks just fine. So, I mean, no offense, you know.
No, none taken.
Always weird when you have to kind of make fun of people's picks or rip them, but there it is. The great Nando DeFino of the Athletic. Now, Jeff, I did mention my little term, the 14-team special. Let me recap real quick round 12, and I might as well go through round 13. We may be done with the round by the time I get through all the names. Justin Tucker, Sammy Watkins, Curtis Samuel, Dan Lewis, 49er D, Baker Mayfield, Chris Thompson, Big Ben, Deshaun Now that was a good pick by Mike Clay, Matt Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, Randall Cobb, Jared Goff, Paris Campbell is one of my 14-team specials. Going in around 13, Darrington Evans, Ebronix, a.k.a. Eric Ebron, Sam Darnold, 14-team special at quarterback for me. T. Higgins, we're taking kickers now. Will Lutz, Chris Herndon, a 14-team special. Josh Reynolds, Drew Lock, Joshua Kelly, 14-team special. Harrison Butker, Antonio Brown, and Devontae Freeman. Jeff Mans, anyone else stand out to you? Oh, Blake Jarwin, 14-team special. Irv Smith, 14-team special. So a lot of my favorite late-round picks going off the board here these last 2 rounds. Jeff, anyone stand out to you as a great, savvy, great late pick?
I think Freeman and Antonio Brown at this stage of the game, just take talent and hope they land somewhere that's quality. If Freeman ends up with Philly, there's been some heat to that. I think that would be a great fit. I know Brown's going to end up facing a suspension one way or another. How many games is it going to be? Is it going to be 4? Going to be 8? I mean, those are difference makers. But in round 13, if he does go to Baltimore, which has been flirting with him a little bit, I mean that's a monster pickup right there in the 13th round. So I think those 2 stand out.
Nando DeFino, I wonder if he's a little upset here because Greg Ambrosius just made a great value pick. How about Joe Burrow going, Howard, with the 2nd pick of round 14? I mean, that's wow. Quarterbacks really dropping. That's like 180 picks into the draft. Your thoughts here on those values? And Kirky Cousins goes off the board right in front of Nando as well.
I like Burrow more than I like Cousins. Obviously, you're going to be dealing with a heavy run scheme in Minnesota. He also lost Stephon Diggs. I can't say that they've replaced the targets too much, or at least enough, with just Justin Jefferson. Listen, I think Burrow is he's a good, solid option. He's a good QB2 for your team. You don't want to be fully reliant on him because you don't know what's going to happen with overall with the offense and how it's going to translate to the NFL. But listen, Burrow's a good guy. He's got great targets. He's got a good backfield and Joe Mixon behind him. So, I mean, I like him. I just, I wouldn't want to use him as my QB1.
Nando DeFino has taken his start in quarterback. Alert the media. Round 14. It is Gardner Minshew, who led all quarterbacks in scrambles last year, 50, despite making just 12 starts. But Jeff Mans, I know you have a hot take on Gardner Minshew. You believe that America is intrigued by Gardner Minshew merely because he has a mullet. Talk about it.
Folks, don't ever think John Hansen isn't in touch with what's going on. Yeah, I think he's overhyped. Obviously, the Jaguars they're tanking. You can't simultaneously tell me that you believe in Gardner Minshew as the future of your franchise while giving him zero support. No support on this. They threw away all the defensive players. They're obviously tanking for Trevor Lawrence. I can't believe anybody would even question that. And if you're tanking for Trevor Lawrence, then do you really believe in Gardner Minshew? I don't think you can claim that. And so I think Minshew's a novelty. I think that scrambling and it's great, and it'll lead. He's a better fantasy quarterback than he is a real quarterback. So I'm okay. I mean, their defense is so putrid, especially if Ngakwe's situation can't get figured out, that I think he'll have to throw an awful lot. So there'll be some fantasy points here, but for those dynasty leaguers out there, I'm not investing in Gardner Minshew long term.
We are 5 picks in around 14. Just had the 2nd and the 3rd defense go off the board. Niners were the first ones. Then it was Pittsburgh and Buffalo. I thought the Steeler pick by Chris Liss was a great value, Howard. I guess no one's drafting 2 defenses in this puppy, but I'm a little surprised. I thought maybe the Steelers would go a little earlier. I mean, do you think you can gain an advantage if you lock up an elite defense in a large league like this?
I like the Steelers defense a lot. I like that pick by Liss. I've been taking the Steelers a ton in best ball drafts so far that I've been doing. I think that, there are 2 schools. There's the, grab an elite defense or as early as you possibly can. And then there are people who just say, I'm just going to stream defenses the entire time. I grab Buffalo because I like the late bye week. I'm not going to have to pick and choose. And, throughout the first several weeks of the season, And if the defense doesn't pan out the way I'm hoping, then I can then I'll just take another team. But I don't think that everybody's really thinking that, oh man, this defense is gonna make or break it, like we saw with a lot of teams with the Patriots defense last season with the scoring. So I'm okay taking an elite defense right now. I think it's totally fine. And I mean, here we are in rounds 14, and here's the defense.
Yeah. I will say this, Howard. Every single damn time I feel the need to be proactive about taking an elite defense, they suck. They're not elites. I mean, it's a year-to-year thing. It does annoy me. But what about Jeff Mann's another strategy? You go defense and kicker maybe one round earlier, then you kind of get your pick of the litter.
100%. If everybody's doing the same thing, it's the same with quarterbacks, and we've seen that a lot in this draft. You want to just be one step ahead of the rest of the opposition, your opponents in this draft. And so if everybody's waiting to the last 2-3 rounds to draft a defense, grabbing that premium known great defense like Patriots or Steelers, somebody like that, round early is a plus EV move, in my opinion. I think one of the things that doesn't get enough acknowledgement in the fantasy game is differences when it comes to defense and special teams. People don't pay enough attention to the offseason moves. I dare everybody listening, go right now, run to your keyboard, go type in Indianapolis Colts defensive depth chart. Tell me where the weakness is. Tell me. Good luck. There's no weakness. They got DeForest and Buckner in there. They've got Darius Leonard and Justin Houston, and they go and get Xavier Rhodes and Rocky Sin in the secondary. This is a loaded defense that nobody's really talking about. So, you get defenses like that, people haven't paid enough attention to their off seasons, and I think you can grab some value there real late in drafts.
Well, I would go to that secondary, by the way. Because,
I know what you're going to say, Rhodes.
Xavier Rhodes, not good. Rocky Sin, yeah, that'll help. They're always working in unison a little bit. Rocky Sin, interesting player, had a kind of underwhelming rookie year. And then TJ Carey, but who am I to say anything about Matt Eberfluss, because 2 years ago they came out of nowhere and they were great. So last year had some issues. Now they do add Buckner.
When you have such a great pass rush, it just helps those corners not have to cover as long. And Xavier Rhodes, when you look at it, he had problems from that 2.5 second to 3.5 second mark. Anything over that, he couldn't hold coverage enough, and that's why he got burnt so bad. I think he actually improves here based on the scheme and based on the time that other quarterbacks will have to throw.
We are making friends and influencing people because the Indianapolis Colts have just gone off the board here. As a a defensive run is going crazy here. Not so much to kickers, 3 off the board now, but we are wrapping up round 14. We've got one more segment forthcoming before we sign off at the top of the hour. We'll see if we can get through 28 picks in about 9 minutes. Doubtful, but you can check out the results on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy, presented by Real Time Sports, and also peep out the live stream as well on the socials at SiriusXM Fantasy. Final segment of this live 3-hour broadcast of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft continues next here, and back at you right after this on Fantasy Sports Radio.
Yeah, Colts.
Flowers taking 2 of my guys right in front of me.
Chargers defense, another good one.
So I took the Colts, so maybe you would put me on the air as the only team left in the air.
Everyone's talking, Glenn. You're the one, the forgotten child. I don't know
what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
You get to come on to talk about Sam Darnold and the Indianapolis Colts. Though,
I love it. That's my sweet spot.
Ray Evans and Armstead, huh? Come on, dude. What are you doing? What are you doing over there? You didn't mean to make those picks. Who's whispering in your ear?
I had to make those picks. I'm following the astute rankings at Fantasy Guru from Jeff Mann's, trying to be Jeff Mann's duh. Ray Flowers of 3 is good, but maybe Jeff Mann's 2 is better. I don't know.
I don't know about that. Are you following? Let me see. Let me see here. That's probably why I do like Kelsey, Beckham, Chark. Yeah, it does seem like
Ray, you can use the Wayback Machine and use the rankings from like 3 years ago. They'll probably be really good.
This team is
They're
smoking.
so much better. They were so much better 3 years ago than now.
Woo!
Yeah, all right. Now it makes sense. Rodgers in the 9th, Alshon. All right, yeah.
So the draft is Wednesday because Drew.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they just took him down from the Zoom and the live stream, so we can't hear him there.
So now we can't hear him.
I'm sure it was an important question.
Something about Wednesday.
Oh, the props and futures bet draft.
Oh, is that Wednesday? Okay.
Eper. Yipper.
Are all the drafts at 4? No, they're not. No,
Yeah.
because
They're all 4 to 7, but they're not being simulcast on SiriusXM. They're all going to be broadcast later on the radio, but the live stream will still be going.
I was gonna say because like nobody's told me my show's not on, but
They're airing at 7.
Jeff, can you step into Matt's office for a quick second
Yeah.
here?
Hey, man,
when you're done with this broadcast.
Hey, man, Matt. Yeah. Can I? Anything else? What?
Streaming live across the internet on Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association websites. This is the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
It is the final segment of the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions Draft here on Fantasy Sports Radio. Let's thank our producers, Drew Phelps, Phil Backert, Ani Sridhar, Sandro Anello. We also want to remind you that there will be plenty more drafts coming up here on the channel. We've got more expert league drafts the rest of the week. 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern as well from the FSGA, including a futures draft on Wednesday. And if we do not finish the draft before we sign off here, you can stay if you're listening on Zoom, on the Zoom live stream presented by Fantasy Alarm. You can continue to hang, stick and stay, and hear the end of the draft here. But before we sign off, we need to talk with Glenn Colton of Colton and the Wolfman, picking out of the 3-hole, took those Colts a couple of rounds ago. Zeke Elliott, Carson, David Montgomery, Devontae Parker, Terry McLaurin, Jerry Jeudy, Hunter Henry, Josh Allen, Brandon Ayuk, Boston Scott, Michael Pittman, Randall Cobb, Sam Darnold, Colt D, Dan Bailey, Glenn. Looks like you had a plan of action. You spread it out pretty evenly here. I thought you had a good draft here. What are you thinking?
Well, I appreciate that. It's the first time, I think, in 10 years covering this that you've complimented our draft. So thank you very much for that.
That's not a good sign, by the way.
Apparently not. We've done okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and we always like to get 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds, and we feel good about the running backs we got. A little worried about very young wide receivers with McLaurin and Jeudy and Ayuk and Pittman. Like Randall Cobb, there's no more D-Hop in Houston. Someone's got to get the ball, and I think he's going to get the ball in the slot there.
Gotcha. All right, Glenn. Well, good luck this year. Howard Bender, I got to tell you, you got sniped here. You should have taken Raquel Armstead. He went in the 14th round, Howard. Are you pissed here because you took Fournette in round 2?
Yeah, you know what? I was a little aggravated to see Raquel go. I thought that he was going to come all the way back. I just figured that was a possibility, and I did. I probably should have taken him in round 13 when I took Joshua Kelly. I'm not too big on Justin Jackson, but I probably, for the sake of my team, should have taken Armstead there. And then when it came down to the defense, I probably should have done that. But you know what? Live and learn. I've got Josh Kelly and Lamical Pirine as 2 guys who I can hopefully get something out of with their situations in Los Angeles and New York.
Did you just call him Limical? Because I've never heard of that.
LaMichael.
Is that just your style and you just opt that way? It's just your.
No, actually, Mark Zwillinger actually told me how to pronounce his name. So
Yeah. Well, I got that wrong about 3
Lamical.
times myself.
This segment brought to you by Adderall, everybody.
Jeff Mans, we are up to the final round here. Kickers are going off the board. Do you have a sleeper kicker this year? Because I do, and he just went off the board to the Sports Illustrated squad. Mr. Gay, Matt Gay is my sleeper kicker this year.
Yeah,
I guess you don't have one.
Yeah, Tampa Bay. I mean, they're not bad. I am in my top 12, so I'm in line right there. I like it, and he's likely not being drafted anywhere in most 12-team leagues. That's for sure.
Other closing thoughts here, Jeff, as we wrap up this draft. It went very well. It's a pleasure working with you guys. As always, we thank all the participants, Ray Flowers, Tim Jensen, Rick Wolf, Glenn Colton. Never mind, Jeff, we're out of time for your final thought. Tweet it. Let me see your Glenn Colton, Raphael Rabe, Howard Kame, and Steve Gardner, Mike Clay, Scott Atkins, Corey Parson, Corey Benini, Howard Bender, the Digger Turnbull, Nana DeFino, a bunch of other dudes. For Jeff Mans and Howard Bender, I'm John Hanson. That's a wrap here. The FSGA Fantasy Football Draft on Fantasy Sports Radio.
That was the best. A bunch of other dudes. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm officially dead.
Well done. You had 2 more names and you didn't go to them.
All-time greatest.
Thank you. I'll be here.
I know. Still on the stream.
Yeah, we're still on the stream, guys.
I'll be here all week.
I'll be here all the week.
Literally.
Oh my God, that was so good.
Well done, everyone. A lot of fun.
Fun time.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Thank you.
Howard, nice work with the software, man. Getting everything put together. That was awesome, Howard.
Yeah, good job, Howard. Way to go,
That's
Howie.
beautiful.
I think Howard could have done better, but still okay.
I swear to God. You're lucky this isn't live, man. I swear to God.
Oh wait, it is live. No.
I will climb up Rusty's back and I will elbow drop you.
If you can do that, you win.
Cocktail hour for the next 2 hours right back here. So I'll see you back there.
All right. See you guys.
Is there going to be a cocktail hour here?
Cocktail hour, 2 hours. 2 hours.
Oh, goodness gracious. What am I going to have?
Oh,
will
there
there
you
be
go.
White Claw, sir?
Tiger King. Ray Flowers, the Tiger King.
All right, fellas. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, John. Be good.
You got it. Later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can leave the board up for the for everybody to watch. So if you guys have somewhere to go and you don't want to be on the rest of this stream and see who Mr. Irrelevant is.
Well, Ray's taking a bunch of my guys whenever I wanted to. I was going to take Darian Evans that round and Raquel Armstead, but I guess you would have taken before me, Howard.
I would have, yes. Yes.
Well, you guys can all take my kickers this round. So have at it.
Yeah, we're all over that, Ray.
Yeah, I know. Big move.
Oh, there's the Dexter kitty.
There he is. That's my normal background. Such a majestic creature.
Okay, kill me on the board.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Great work.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Digger, buzz me in the morning. We got to work out a few details on the futures and props.
Okay. Or you call me, okay, when you're ready.
That's fine.
There we go. Okay. What's up?
I'm going to be probably dealing with the baseball stuff in the morning because it's looking like 48-game commissioner imposed season.
Okay, so you call me then when you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably better that way.
You guys think Trout and Garrett Cole and those types will sit it out?
I think it's very possible, yeah.
I mean, they both have pregnant wives, and it's like you're getting paid a quarter of your salary. Is it worth it?
I don't think so. I think we're going to see a lot of guys sit out. Everyone's got that doctor that can write them a prescription for their anxiety meds and explain that they can't participate because of their anxiety. And, I think a lot of guys are going to use it as an excuse so that they can, I don't know how everything's going to work out with payment, but I'd probably forego it than take the chance.
Yeah, why risk it when you're like a Trout? Why risk the injury possibility from a big asterisk season?
All right, gentlemen. Good job.
Gotta hang around and push the magic one button.
Tim, did you do anything? You're good?
I'm good. I'm just waiting to take my super dark sleeper here that's probably going to get dumped on the waiver wire in the first week anyway.
I've got a few sleeper picks that are going to be
done. I like Chase.
Yeah, we'll have to see if he or Washington wins the battle in camp.
We were considering Peterson like 3 rounds in a row, and we just were like, And now he'll probably turn into be good, right? Yeah. What'll happen to Geisen? He'll have a revitalization.
No, my guy Gibson's going to take the spot.
Maybe.
All right. Well, there we go. Draft
all right, let's push that fancy alarm evaluate button. And
it has a big relegate next to our name, I think.